Ready, Mr. Attorney, you ready? Okay, this is a committee of the whole meeting, June 10th, 2014, call to order at approximately 5:38. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilman Burgess. Here. Councilman Maldonado. Councilman Williams.
Here.
Councilwoman Faircloth is at jury duty. Vice Mayor Shelley.
Here.
Mayor Porter.
Here. Item 3, additions, deletions, deferrals. Manager? Anything? Nothing? Tab 1, presentation.
Okay, Mayor, I'll start us off. We sent you a whole lot of information in your packets on this. This is the recommendation for award for bid number 201409 for the new City Hall project. To put this in context, the first time this was advertised was back in 2009. Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, Julio. And basically, this came after many, many years of design work and community forums and public meetings. And so in 2009, the bids came, they were sent out, they came back, and then there was a decision or non-decision, but just it never went forward. And then this thing has been discussed for the next several years. Ultimately, a decision was made by the council to go forward with the existing plans since they were at 100% construction drawings, and we had spent about $1 million to have the plans drawn up. And so tonight, what you have before you is the result of several new bids, because last time we bid, we didn't get the responses that we were hoping for. So this latest round of bids, thankfully, we ended up saving roughly $649,000 savings by rebidding this, since the current lowest bidder, their previous bid, was higher. So thank you for allowing us to give one more shot at the rebidding, because I think that was very helpful to us. We do have the firm here, or first of all, we have your architects here if you have questions. We also have Rodriguez and Quiroga, and we also have MCM representatives who plan to give a presentation. And I'm going to ask you as well, because our legal opinion has been that we have not been allowed to have any discussions with them due to the code of silence. So I hope, because this is my concern as well as many members of the council, as you do your presentation, if you could also incorporate some assurances that all of us have about concerns about change orders and what you can do to ensure that we're not going to be coming back to this council time and again to ask them for changes, because the budget already is well beyond what people had hoped for. So, but this particular council does not have very much patience for change orders, and I'm sure you'll hear from them as well. So whatever concerns you can, whatever comments you can make to alleviate those concerns would be well appreciated. And Julio, anything else that I need to mention before they do their presentation? Okay, so Mayor, if you can, if you will, if you're comfortable, they're ready to do their presentation, and then we'll have some more detail for you.
Okay, so right now, at this particular point, staff's recommendation is to accept the MCM bid?
Yes.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, if anyone has a question from council, and otherwise we'll start with the presentation. Please tell us your name and address for the record, please, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Alexis Leal. I'm with MCM. My address is 20260 Southwest 50th Place in Southwest Ranches, Florida, 33332. Thank you very much, Council, the Mayor's Office, Office of the Manager, for allowing us today to come here and present to you who MCM is. We've been asked to present a introduction or reintroduction rather of MCM and who we are, and hopefully what I've done here in this part of this presentation is to show you what MCM is all about after us celebrating our 30th year here in South Florida. And with that, I'm going to start the presentation. If I get this clicker to work.
Hoping that doesn't happen to me, because I'm next. So. work out all the trouble now.
Thank goodness you have a great department that's going to fix this.
Is with my presentation. It's upside down.
Thank you. MCM's mission statement is a builder committed to delivering total client satisfaction by providing legendary customer service with an uncompromising commitment to safety and quality. This is important because we always put the client first. We've come a long way in our 30 years, and of course, we never compromise our safety and our quality, and we live that every day. And through this presentation, hopefully you'll see that conveyed to you. A little history about MCM. What I like to call the miracle of MCM and the eventual American dream is our story starts in Cuba in the late 40s and 50s. Fernando Munilla Sr. Was a pioneering design builder in Cuba. Some of the most important projects in Cuba were built by Fernando. When Castro came, what happened was eventually the family was exiled, and this is important because this really starts the great bonding of an incredible story of 6 brothers. The first 4 brothers were shipped on the Pedro Pan program to an orphanage in Ohio with a note on their shirts that says, "Please keep my children together." Eventually, the mother was sent to the United States as well with brothers number 5 and 6, George and Juan Munilla. And eventually the father was able to get out of Cuba with the shirt on his back and only the engineering degree he had earned as part of his education in Cuba. Unfortunately, and fortunately, because it's a double-edged sword, they weren't able to take all the wealth and whatever they amassed in Cuba with them, but the positive side of that is they created a bond like no other in South Florida, and I hope to show that to you today. The owners of the company are 5 of the 6 brothers. Today with us we have Raul Munilla, and this is important in that the brothers are very involved in the organization. George Munilla couldn't join us today. He will be the principal in charge of this project. Unfortunately, slicing onions yesterday, he happened to have an accident. He cut his finger and he had surgery this morning. Although he wanted to be here, we told him, "George, don't worry about it. We got your back," and that's the beautiful thing about family. So Raul's here with us tonight. And it's important because you will have the commitment from the brothers that they will be at your beck and call for any concerns you may have. And they are not silent owners. These are owners that are very active and engaged in their business, and they will continue to be that way for many, many years to come. A little bit about MCM. In our 30 years, we started a business as a more of a vertical residential type company. We have built municipal structures, schools, hospitals, jails, to name a few. And then we also metamorphosized a bit into heavy road and civil construction. And what that has allowed us to do is really create immense amount of resources when it comes to personnel and equipment. And that's important because at any given time we can self-perform. Unlike most construction manager organizations, we can self-perform our civil works, our infrastructure work, or even our shell work, and that's always very important. A couple key points about MCM. Our Safety First program is 0 to none. We are an exceptionally safe company. We have a tremendous commitment for safety on all our projects. Another thing that really differentiates us from most companies is we're an ISO 9001 certified company. What does that mean? That means we have the international certification of having a third-party agency, in this case Bureau Veritas, that has come to our office. They had audited all our systems, whether it be processing an invoices, whether it's processing a submittal, or whether it's simply how to make a phone call during the bid process. And they have verified that we meet every single one of our standards. And what that means to you as a client is our quality control is second to none. And we've made that commitment, and the brothers have made that commitment to invest in the company to make sure that quality is #1 as well too, just like safety and total client satisfaction. We are a gold level member of the U.S. Green Building Council. This project is a LEED project. One of the members of our team, Ruben Bravo, he happens to have sat before on the council, the U.S. Green Council, and he's a leader in his industry, and he will be involved in this project as far as the MCM side of our lead coordinator. We have many personnel, roughly about 1,000 worldwide, but more importantly, 300 located here in South Florida. And we have offices in Florida, both in Dade and Broward County, and also in Texas and in Panama. Now, unique to MCM and to the brothers, and this is something that I mentioned earlier, they never forgot that a lot of folks along the way to their success helped them. And after many years of unsuccessful ventures and finally having successful years, the brothers created the Munilla Family Foundation. And this is very important because they constantly give back, whether it's to United Way, whether it's to any community. There is a corporate culture of giving. And that's the beautiful thing that I mentioned earlier about the family, is they constantly realize that by giving, you receive more, and the Munilla Family Foundation is a beautiful example of that. Some of the agencies that we partner with are the United Way, Barry University, and there's a few others here. And this is just a small group of agencies or groups that we partner with. There's many, many more. It's too many to mention, quite honestly. In addition to that, we really encourage our personnel to get involved with all the affiliations associated with our industry. For instance, George Munilla is the past president of the South Florida AGC board. I happen to be sitting currently on the South Florida AGC board as well. Bruce McDonald sits on the Engineering Contractors Association of South Florida. Eric Valderrama sits as a current board member of the LBA, and so on and so forth. And it is encouraging our company to really give back. By giving back your time, more so than just philanthropy, but by giving back your time, you really become that true mentor that we try to be with all our subcontractors and to our community. We were once that protege that was looking from the bottom up, and we hope to give back and make sure we influence other companies. And by getting involved, this is what we do. We were asked to include certain major projects, recent projects that have similar scopes or whatnot to this very important City of Homestead project. And I want to point out the Miami High project. If you can tell from the screen, I know it's difficult to see, but that has a very high-end auditorium. It's a historic project. The finishes are similar, if not greater, than what we're going to be building for you all. And this project, as I go through the presentation, we get a really nice accolade from the current Superintendent Carvalho. And this project, I want to also stress that it was on time and on budget. This next project is something that's near to South Dade. It's the wastewater treatment plant over at Black Point. It's got a lot of MEP difficult systems. And more importantly, we really go above and beyond with our clients in that we identified a certain purchase for the county. Even though the specs did not call for any sales tax savings, we pointed out to the county that if they bought the generators direct, they can save nearly $1 million. We pushed that, and through our own incentive, we were able to save the county $1 million. And these are things that we really go above and beyond what's expected. It's just another differentiator of MCM. Here's a project that we partner with Miami-Dade County Aviation, and we had the pleasure of working with Rodriguez and Quiroga on. It's the 756 AD project, North Terminal Improvements. It was a large project, roughly about $155 million. And this project is very important, and the finishes on this project are very intense, and they're very high-end. This is a project, and to answer one of your questions regarding change orders is really not something we seek to do. If you were probably to cue any project manager in our company and ask them if they would rather work on a project with 0 change orders or 100, trust me, they would tell you 100% of the times, we do not want change orders. We certainly don't seek to build them or seek to find them. However, we do stress that as owners, you guys have the options of always maybe increasing the finish, or maybe there's a system change that now, because of new technology, you have the ability to maybe upgrade a current system that may be outdated because technology changes so fast. And these are things that we will help in the process to identify your architectural and engineering team. And that's where we really shine as far as change orders. It's an inherent process of any construction. project, but we are certainly not the ones that seek to make any money off change orders. That's not us. That's not who we are.
Or maybe we could have a little more discussion about change orders afterwards, and also with Raul here, it might be helpful just to alleviate everyone's concerns about that. I don't want to interrupt the presentation, but say, for me, that's the chief concern of getting this project done on time and on budget.
We welcome that. We're currently working with Rodriguez and Quiroga on another project where I'm sure they can attest of how effective and efficient our problem-solving skills are, where today we really don't
I
have
promise
it.
you, we're not going to ask for extra finishes. We're not going to ask for anything more. We're very happy with what they
Perfect.
designed. So my only fear is that you come back to us and say, oh, you know, we found this or we found that, and I just want to get a level of comfort that you've looked at all this and you're sure that, you know, what are some of the things that could possibly go wrong that would drive change orders, and Raul and Julio maybe can help us with that too, so we can have just a little dialogue on that so that there's no surprises, because at the end of the day, if we have to come before them and ask them for change orders, it's the staff that's going to take most of the, negative feedback. So I'd prefer that we get that out in the open now.
Sure, understood. And then to reiterate, the beautiful thing is we have a long working relationship with the Rodriguez Quiroga team, so we understand each other's professionalism and how we go about problem solving, most importantly. So
And
I'm sure
Raul told me that his average is about, change orders of the project is about 1.5%. So that sounds like a really good number. So hopefully, you know, we'll get it lower than that.
beautiful. Another important project we built, which was the MDFR, a very difficult training facility. I pointed this project out because the current chief, the fire chief, really went out of his way to write us a nice accommodation letter. And again, a very important project, a project that was built on time and on budget without one change order. Here's another project at the airport. Of course, when you're working on airports that are, this project in particular, 500,000 square feet of renovated space, and tearing up ceilings and walls that haven't been looked at in 40, 50 years, of course, you're going to have a certain inherent percentage of unforeseen condition. But nonetheless, things such as changing the facade of Concourse A in the metal wall panel system. We had change orders that the owner directed us to do ventilation at the lower drive, and these are things Rodriguez and Quiroga could attest to, which is a beautiful thing about having had such a great working relationship before. And these are all owner-driven change orders, certainly not things that we were looking to do. And this last project is important because it also notes what I had mentioned earlier, that we really go above and beyond what is expected. This project was a certified, it was contractually a silver designation lead building. What we did at no cost of the owner, we were able to go and through some tremendous coordination with our architectural and engineering team and the owner, we were able to achieve at no dollar cost to the owner a gold designation. And this is one of two projects that we've done. The other project we did that on, which was a LEED certified building that we turned it into a silver building, was a Port of Miami concourse renovation that we turned in last year as well too. So historically, we've done that now twice, where we've gone above and beyond what's contractually required at no cost to the owner. And this is things that just what we really want to differentiate about who MCM is. We're just not your regular contractor. We really have the client's interests as our number one priority. I put a couple letters here because I think when our clients write about us and they go above and beyond what normal people would write, I think it's very important. This was one of the questionnaires that was part of the City of Homestead package, and I want to just point out David Downey. He's now the current fire chief, and he writes that the representative of MCMs are commended for their professionalism and commitment to making a project a success. This next letter is from the previous director of MDAD, Jose Abreu, and he writes something which stresses what I said earlier. MCM is owned by the Munilla brothers. The principals are always making themselves available to their clients, so that's very important. It's not only what I sit up here and say, but you have directors of airports telling you, oh, this is exactly what they do. And that's what I'm here to stress to you. We not only say it, but we actually do it. This next letter is very important. in that the Department of Military Affairs put out a bid last year. It was bid by 5 or 6 contractors, $6 million over budget. They put it out to rebid, and we were fortunate because of our pre-construction services and our VE skills that we were selected to be the CM. We needed to reduce this project about $5 million in cost without changing 1 square foot of the building. And if we didn't get to do this for them in roughly 3.5 weeks' time, they would have lost the appropriated funds in order for them to build the structure. By teaming up, again, with the client, identifying what their really needs were versus their wants, and teaming up with the architect, we were able to identify several $1 million worth of cost, and we got this project under budget at $19,900,000, and we're currently building under construction. Again, these are things that we do above and beyond what's expected. And this last letter is maybe the singularly the most important one, because it's written, again, on your reference questionnaire, prepared to the RFP by a senior project manager. This is a guy who was on the site for 4+ years, day in, day out, somebody who grew up with the project, not somebody who visited the project twice or 2 times a year. He writes, and he graded us a 4 out of 5, mind you, and he writes, "I do not believe any firm or individual rates an excellent. However, in over 33 years of working in Miami, the firm of MCM has come the closest to that rating of excellent than any other firm that I have worked with." And that to us is a testament of who we are. The day-to-day project manager, pretty much, only because of his own principles, and he's a hardhead, Dennis Caserta. He didn't rate us a 5, but he sure wrote something really nice to justify why he only gave us a 4. And again, up top, Alberto Carvalho writes something very nice in that our continued relationship with MDCPS is a testament of why we continue to perform with them, for them. And as a result of that, we had a rededication of the school in April, and I got a little 15-second clip that I want to play for you. If anybody here knows the superintendent, he drives a hard bargain. And what you get out of those last 10 seconds, and he had a real nice, close to 2-minute words about us, is that we listened to him and to his staff and we delivered, and also that we finished the project on time and on budget. A very difficult 4-year historical renovation of probably the single greatest, most important high school of Dade County, Miami Senior High School. And with that, before I introduce our project manager for this project, I just want to tell you that we truly partner with our clients, and we, like I said earlier, and I don't want it to be a cliche, but we really do what we say, and we hope that you see that through our 3 times that we bid this project. I think we're the only firm that may have done that. We bid it all 3 times. In addition to that, we do truly believe that we provide the best value of any contractor for you. And with that, I want to introduce Willie Ugarte, who's our proposed project manager.
Can you, before he starts on yours, because since you mentioned the change orders and you mentioned one particular example of why there'd be a change order, the government asked for something extra, can you give us a few more examples of what circumstances you would envision there being change orders for this project? And Raul, I was wondering if you could give us an answer to the same question, so that 6 months down the line, if we're here in this well asking for change orders, because in an ideal world, you never come back for any change orders, and like I said, we're not going to ask you for anything extra, but I would like to hear from your perspective, where is it that you would see change orders for this project? Because I'm assuming that you looked through all the plans, you carefully costed everything out. I'm assuming that Raul and his firm, when they drew the plans for $1 million, I think we probably got good, accurate plans, right? So where is it that we would have, what circumstances would you see where we would have change orders?
Since I started that conversation, I'll let Raul be the middle part, and then I'll close it if you don't mind.
Great. And by the way, for the councils, I would have asked all these questions ahead of time, but I didn't really have access to them, and I thought it was very important, since I know your concerns about change orders, to really get a detailed answer to this so that we don't have any misunderstanding downstream.
Good afternoon. I'll give you some of the highlights. There are three fundamental reasons why change orders occur, and city attorney is well experienced in construction law and so on. The first one is unforeseen conditions. Now, this site, your site, has been thoroughly tested, not only for soil borings and sort of bearing capacity, but also for contamination, and everything has gotten a good bill of health. You do not have an existing building to work with. If you had an existing building like we had at the airport, it's a different story, because then you find things not only underground, you find things when you take ceilings down, you find all kinds of...
And when you say the site has been tested, you also did the x-rays to find out if there's any rock or any
Correct.
kind of surprises,
Soil borings.
a burial ground or any kind of toxic waste dump, or you did
Or a
all
river,
those,
or a river.
right? You did all those tests, right?
Well, I didn't do them, but we ordered them, and they were done, and they came
And
out with a
everything
clean
came
bill of
through
health.
clear.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Okay, so, but that's a big one, and it's a big one when you buy any land, and that's why that's an important thing to point out first. Second thing, again, is when you're dealing with a remodeling an existing building, you find all kinds of things. But both of those comprise unforeseen conditions, okay? The second thing, which you do not want to be scared about, is owner-requested changes. What I always tell my clients is, it's more expensive to do it during the plans, because you change the plans, you have to pay me to change the plans. Even more expensive to do it during construction, because you have to pay the contractor to make those changes. And the most expensive is to do it after construction, because that's you're retrofitting the building. So you want to know that you have to have, and that's why I suggested putting some money aside on a construction contingency, which most of our clients have 3 to 5%. Our jobs average 1.5%, but I don't want you coming back to the council because you found out that there is some equipment that is now outdated, the way technology goes, and you don't have the money to go in and come with the next generation of equipment. But that's entirely up to the council and to you, to the administration.
And just for the record, I asked, just to be sure, even though we went through the exercise once, I asked the department heads again to sit down with David Abeer, sit down, go through every department, check through, and every department head has assured me they've looked at the equipment, they've looked at the way things are laid out, and they're comfortable that it meets their operational needs. So I wouldn't expect department heads that we're going to have any issues with that. Julio, correct?
We had our technical review by our consultants from the first time, from '09. There were a lot of technological changes that were incorporated last year before it was put out to bid. But again,
So my hope is that that doesn't become an issue
correct,
as well.
correct. And then the third one is on me. For that $1 million, you didn't buy perfect drawings. But the best judge of change orders is how good the plans are. And that's why I want the contractors to tell you today, if the plans are no good, then it's too soon to award the contract. But the plans make a big difference.
And I'm
Completed plans.
assuming they looked at your plans, and if there was something about them that was no good, they would know by now, or they
Well,
wouldn't
there
know?
was a bidding, I'll let them answer that, but there was a bidding period during which they were able to raise questions, and they were answered of all the bidders that submitted them through an addenda. Okay?
Mr. Manager, they've looked at them not once, not 2 times, but 3 times, because they bid all 3 times. So they've
And
looked
that-
at our plans plenty.
And that's helpful because, like, this council has lived this, and I certainly as a manager have lived this over the years, which is the contractor comes back and says, oh, the plans are no good, they're all screwed up, we have to do this was missing, this didn't align. So that's why I thought it was important that you're both here and you both say these are good plans and nobody foresees anything major, because unfortunately it's on our dime if there's major problems, right? And there's no money for that.
Well, they could not have answered it any better. I mean, Mr. Rodriguez hit it right on the head, the reasons why change orders do occur. And Mr. Bibas stole my thunder. You know, we bid this 3 times for you. And I know the first 2 times there were a lot of question and answers by all the bidders. If you recall the first time it bid, I think 20 some odd bidders bid it. There was a lot of question and answers, giving the architect an opportunity to clarify those. At second time that was bid, additionally, there were some additional questions asked and answered rather. Again, giving the architect a second opportunity to go ahead and clarify those things that may have been a bit ambiguous. And again, a third time that it bid, and we participated in all 3 bids. Again, another round of questions and answers were given. That is the bright side of having a project bid 3 times. It's unfortunate. There's a lot of effort and money spent to get to this point. And of course, as we all see, as time has changed now in the construction industry in South Florida, prices are going up, and certainly the workforce shortage that we will soon have, as soon as more of these buildings come to pass, we will probably have a challenge in the next couple of years going forward. And these are things that, fortunately for you, you're ready to award this project, and God willing, you will award it, and you won't have to go through any of that. But reiterating what Raul said, unforeseen conditions, things of that nature, technology changes where an owner or consultant comes in and says, look, let's go with this because it's a better opportunity going forward. We may get a longer life out of the systems and things of that nature. We certainly don't anticipate having any coordination type or omissions of any systems or anything of great consequence on this project.
Well, I'm sure, I'm willing to commit to this, and I'm sure the mayor and the council would be as well. If you get it on time and on budget, we'll get you another little video of everybody standing at the podium saying the same thing so you could add it to your collection. But this is a very important piece of the puzzle for us, and you know, of all the things that we're worried about, staying within the budget and getting this project done in a timely fashion and in a quality way is really something that is a major concern for us.
Well, I'm glad you say that, and it's funny you mentioned this at a collection, but you got to really truly understand MCM. All 6 owners, all 5 owners rather, they live in South Florida. This is they have to wake up every day and read the paper here. The pride that we get in having people such as yourself write good things about us we can't even begin to express our gratitude for things of that nature. It goes beyond than making a dollar. This is our community. This is where we work. This is where we play. This is where we live. Our children grow up here. So this is above and beyond simply just making a buck. And with that, if we're ready, this is the project manager we're proposing for your project. He's got 3 short slides to go through, and then we'll be ready for any other question or answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. Good evening, Council. My name is William Ugarte, and I've been given the distinguished pleasure to oversee the day-to-day operations for this project. My team and I will be hard at work together with the city and with the design professionals, Rodriguez and Quiroga. Here is, and this chart here shows the MCM team. And as Alexis mentioned earlier, you can see here on the right that George Munilla, one of the principals of MCM, will be directly overseeing this project firsthand. And more importantly, he will be overseeing the safety and the quality assurance and quality control coordination of the project. Over to the bottom right, we have Mr. Ruben Bravo, who is our lead AP manager, and he will be working closely with our friends from Rodriguez and Quiroga to meet all the lead goals for the project. And further down is my team, which will be working together with the city and with the design professional. Next here we have, okay. Next we have a project approach to site logistics, which is the maintenance of traffic. This is going to be the flow of traffic of material and equipment to the site using Campbell Drive through Flagler Avenue and in through Civic Court into the project. This we can also will elaborate once we get started on the project with the city and the engineers for any concerns or if there's any additional things they want to add to the way we go into the
And where
project.
you have those drawings, that's where the staging, you're expecting the staging?
That's where
to
we're
occur?
expecting the staging at this point.
And from the time you receive a notice to proceed from the city, when can the city start seeing activity, staging, and progress?
I believe that we have within 30 days, but we're going to move quickly and efficiently, and hopefully, before even the 30 days, we will be out there. I'm going to go into that next. I don't know if you guys can see that, but here we have a
Again, I hate
project
to
approach.
interrupt, but just for the council's information, this notice to proceed, which is July 2nd, we're probably 1 week past that because at the next council meeting, you'll be approving the contract contingent on the approval of the line of credit, and we expect that to occur on July 7th, July 8th, and they'll need 1 or 2 days after that to finalize the documents and then issue the notice to proceed. So we're really talking about a difference of maybe 7, 8 days
Okay.
beyond that date.
Okay, yes, this was a preliminary schedule that we put together using a July 2nd start date and an end date of November 15th, which is approximately a couple of months earlier than the project schedule that was originally submitted. Like I said, this is, anticipating that start date. Again, we look forward to working with the city and with the design professionals in delivering a successful project on time and on budget. Thank you.
If I could, just since before you start with your questions, just wanted to mention that furniture is bid separately and it's done towards the back end of the project, so we'll talk a lot more about furniture. We have a proposed budget that's been attached there. We're also looking at some fees for project manager and architectural that goes above and beyond this contract. So there's some other items on this list that will come to you towards the various stages of this, but this is obviously the biggest portion of this.
We just want you to get all your questions first, because I know it is kind of it's a weird process when you can't talk to
Right.
potential.
I'm more familiar with, you talk to them, you meet with them, you ask out, vet all these things before it comes to you, and my apologies because this is a little messier, but I think at some point we might want to look at our ordinance because it's not helpful for the
No.
staff to be able to vet this stuff before it gets
No,
to you.
I agree completely. I don't understand why you wouldn't be able to converse back and forth through the part of the process, the most important. So, but that being said, we'll talk about that another day. Anything from the council? Any questions from the council at this point? Please.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I guess this goes to a question that was addressed a little bit.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, was
No,
I
go
not
ahead. Go
supposed
ahead.
to?
No,
Okay.
go ahead.
To the technology that's been put into the building. And I think, it's been 5 years, things have come and gone and become obsolete that were top of the line back then. Could you maybe, and you said there were some updates and some discussions of meetings, could you maybe give me a little more on that and where we're at, and then if anybody from staff who feels that could enlighten us on where we're at and as far as the technology that has been changed or where we're at with the technology that you guys are comfortable with, I would appreciate it.
Every single consultant of ours received an instruction to review the plans of '09 before they were put out in '13. To give you an example, what has happened to lighting is now all LED. There's no more incandescent. So there was quite a bit of revisions, and Julio can attest to that. And all of that was done for the last bid on 2013. Since then, we gave the same direction, and it came back that it's all up to date. So we cannot predict what can happen in the course of 18 months, that building is going to be built. But like I said, the worst thing you want is to change it after the building's finished. But we today have reason to believe that there will not be any need to change for any type of contingency due to technology.
So I guess a follow-up question then, yeah, but one of the things, you know, like things have become much more wireless where you don't need, you know, the hard wiring and things like that. So is all that then taken into account?
All
with
of that, and there was a
building?
lot of that in the, funny you should ask, in the dais of the new council chambers. All of that had to be updated, and it was.
Julio and Jerry, do you want to speak a little bit about the exercise that you all went through?
Through the manager. Councilman Burgess, IT went ahead and took a look at the technology package with respect to the ITS department. We were satisfied with the information that's in there. Our intent is to actually move all our computer equipment, servers, switches, things of that nature over to the new building. With that being said, they are providing us a new core switch for our network and a couple of other items, so we're satisfied with the IT section.
Yeah, just to add to that, I met with Jerry also regarding the technology aspect of the project. This project, the way it was bid, there was an actual section, I think section 16 of the contract documents, which just plain and simple covers all the technical aspects of it. Jerry reviewed those. We made sure that there weren't anything that was missing in terms from a core perspective of it. So again, having the advantage of having this project bid 3 times helped out along the way. But in this particular project, the way that technology section was actually what was required of the contractors was to submit an actual package separate from their bid documents covering all the detail regarding the technology aspect of the project. And those packages were literally like 2 inches thick in terms of all the equipment that was included in there.
Julio, above and beyond the technology, all the new building codes were addressed as well, correct, Raul? And also, you met with each of the department heads that will be housed in the building. They looked at it from an operational perspective. Did you want to just go through that a little bit as well?
Correct, yeah. There was 2 things. First, regarding the code requirements. This project, just like any other project, has to be reviewed and approved by our building department. Basically, they've been involved through this whole process to make sure that that's exactly the case, that it meets the code requirements up to date, which is what we have now. Regarding the requirements of every department, I personally sat down with each one of the directors for each department to go over the sort of like the needs and outs. Again, we did this 3 times already with each one of the departments, but again, just to make sure that there wasn't any major changes that would have occurred between one bid and the other, and really the needs that were addressed previously hadn't changed, so we have the same operation for all the departments. Correct. The drawings actually have identification labels on them describing who's going to be where. So it's easy enough to go over and figure out exactly who's going to sit where, and everything fits.
And this exercise was important for us. We learned some lessons in going to the swing space where, for the most part, all the department heads and their employees went into the raw space to look and see the drawings and just see how they would operate with the drawings that they looked at. And it was almost flawless, and small things like the counter is too tall for the way we operate, or it's too short, and we made a little adjustments, but for the most part, the staff's participation was very helpful, so that they could think about their daily operation and look where they'd be sitting and where they'd be going and where everything fits, and we've done all that for this as well, correct? And every department head that will be housed in here is comfortable with it, correct?
Correct, yes.
Thank you. And to Raul, he brought up a fact that, you know, lighting has now gone to LED. The cooling systems, the air conditioners and all that have improved immensely over 5 years, and the way that they operate inside of a building. Have we done any upgrades?
All of that has been updated.
Okay, so all that has been taken and addressed also.
Yes, and also one other thing while you're there, because I think we've had this discussion, but it's important just to make sure everybody understands. When the building is built and you're walking through, you're going to see some empty space, correct?
Correct.
And there was a
Growth
reason
space.
for that. Did you want to kind of go through the rationale for that? Because I know you had these discussions when the original project was approved, but it's been so long. My concern is once it's built, everybody's going to say, geez, why is there so much empty space here? And I think it's important to understand the philosophy behind that.
Well, I say this only half kiddingly, but when the architect outlives the staff is a problem. Because they say, who was the one who thought about this? But the fact is, we've gone through it 3 times. And like Julio said, we met with each department head, and they had time not only to review what they had in front of them, but to go back to their department and see how it compared to what they have now and how their needs have changed. There's going to be, as you would expect, some growth space, and that was allowed. And there is no other change that is contemplated at this time. So things might change in 18 months again. But right now, what we are contemplating is that the positions, lines of duty that you have today will be able to occupy that building, and there will be some growth space.
We also would expect, as customer service evolves with newer technology and better operations, that they'll probably have less need for space for certain of the things they do with customers coming in, and more of that space used for call center type activity. So over time, that may evolve as well, Catherine, and so we'll be looking at that and making sure that we're on top of that as well.
Another important thing, and not to belabor the point, but the middle of the building, the second floor in the center of the building is the EOC, which you might recall. So that is solid, and that's hardened, as they call it, and that's where you will be able to manage if, God forbid, there were another hurricane come through Homestead.
And hold on, Mr. Williams is first. Is that all?
I had one more for the
Go
manager.
ahead, finish up. You got the floor.
George, this line of credit that we're intending to take, I guess, can you tell me what our plan is for payback and where we're going with that? And what kind of time frame do you think we're going to have on payback and those type of things?
Well,
Because that's a big piece of this whole puzzle.
there's a few pieces that we can't answer yet, so I'll kind of go through some of the variables. The first one is we know what the contract's going to cost, and that's definite. What we don't know is the final numbers on furniture, on contingency, because as everybody says, no change orders. We understand the industry standard is somewhere between 3 to 6% average. So while we don't expect to have that, and the reason I drill this point so strongly is we're going to have a lot of conflict if that starts occurring. I just wanted to put all the parties on notice that that's not something that we're going to be lenient about, but we also are realistic enough to know that there is going to be some contingency required, so whether it's we have 0 and above, but so we don't know what that number is necessarily, so this is why the line of credit makes a whole lot of sense for us. We also know that construction supervision and architectural fees are arranged, but we're going to have better numbers as we finalize those negotiations as well. So as you look at your anticipated cost range, there's a high and a low, and we know that what we did was we got like a rough guesstimate of what we think, actually what a real estate professional thinks the old City Hall property is worth. We hope it's more than what the estimate is, and also we anticipate coming back to you at some point to have a real discussion about what are your goals in terms of that property. Is it just a straight sale, or is there something else you want to do, and what kind of projects you want to see on there? But certainly, we're expecting with this line of credit that at some point the decision the council will make is to either sell or lease that property to help us pay down that line of credit. We also have the other question of we have 2 banks that we're looking at in terms of short-term or long-term and what's the best for us. We have one bank that is a little cheaper on the short-term if we were going to cash out fairly quickly. On the other hand, if we decide that the terms are so good with the second bank that we may decide to keep that line of credit because it's cheap money, particularly if interest rates start going up. The second bank is guaranteeing us an interest rate that's very favorable. So we're probably going to want to have that discussion with you as well, just to make sure that, you know, if that's a possibility, it's always good to have that line of credit, in my opinion, but you may disagree philosophically. And so the idea would be sell or lease the City Hall property, and with the cash that you currently have, plus the City Hall property, that should be enough to get us most of what we need, hopefully more depending on the value of the property. And where I can't answer is I don't know if we're going to be at the low end or the high end of the estimates, and I'm hoping that the 27.4 is more realistic than the 31, but my guess is we're going to have to really stay on top of this, and I would encourage you all to bark a little bit tonight at them, and we'll keep barking at them every time we have an opportunity, because the process, sometimes people get comfortable with just coming back and asking for more money, and we really are on a very tight situation here. So we would encourage you all to, you know, give them a little trouble now and then, just so that they don't want to come back and hear from you again.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Mr. Williams?
Yes. Thank you so much, Mayor, and to the staff. A couple of questions that perhaps comes from a different mindset beyond change orders and anything else. Somebody will tell me from your diversity in your working staff as relates to subcontractors and different things of that nature. I know you boast about 1,000 employees, 300 here in Dade County or so. When it comes to diversity in contracts of local contract preferences, now I see here in the letter that you're dealing with workforce, but could you speak more elaborately on some of your diversity in your company?
Sure, it would be my pleasure. Being mostly a public sector contractor, and it goes beyond just having these goals per se on most of the projects that we do. Again, this is another differentiator for us. With the school board, for instance, of Dade County, we have partnered with Brian Williams, who's the current small business, if you will, liaison. And we've had several subcontractor outreach programs identifying certain projects in which small business, if you would, or minority contractors or women contractors could participate. And we are the leader for that for the Miami-Dade County Public School Board. In addition to that, we are currently the miscellaneous construction contractor for Miami-Dade County Aviation. And what that is, sir, is that we are managing for the county it was a $50 million program. They bumped it to $70 million to provide more work. But what that program does is provide most of that work to small minority and women businesses, and that's through Miami-Dade County. Anywhere between 80 and 90% of that work is going to those diverse type companies. Now, as far as a company as a whole, you know, we're recent immigrants. We are, you know, who we are. We're a Cuban firm that was helped tremendously by many people. We really go out of our way to not have an eye for any particular race, color, creed. A lot of our managers are women for our departments. For instance, our HR manager is a woman. Our marketing manager is a woman. One of our senior project managers is a woman. And it goes above and beyond that throughout our company. I consider us to be an extremely diverse company. And in the subcontractor marketplace, we are certainly considered to be, if not the leader, one of the leaders in that. And there's an association called the CSBE Association for Miami-Dade County. Ms. Dorothy Alfaro Brown leads that. And I know she's somebody that we can certainly call right now, and she would attest to you all of what kind of things we do above and beyond what's expected to make sure that the small business community is involved in each and every one of our projects, whether there's a stated goal or not.
My next question is that since you've defined your company as to be Cuban base, how do you, particularly with this homestead piece, how will you interact with the local businesses here to perhaps ensure that some of your subcontracting work will be done by businesses that are in Homestead?
That's something that we typically do at the estimating side of the project, where we reach out to all businesses. In this particular case, it was really all of Dade County, not only in Homestead, but all of Dade County. And the unique thing about this project for us is we have decided that we're going to self-perform this work. So we're going to have a great opportunity to really hire the local labor force out of the city of Homestead or this general area. As a matter of fact, our general superintendent, his name is John Jackson. He's been a lifelong resident of the city of Homestead, K&J Contractors. He has been now employed with MCM for quite some time, and he is going to be leading the charge in building this facility. So you're going to have one of your own residents building the shell of this project, and we will make certain that we will hire locally from the city of Homestead as a priority.
Mhm. How can we, at some point, how will we be able to monitor that? What measures do you have, or how do you measure the percentage of that will be from Homestead? How would you?
Although to my knowledge is not a contractor requirement, we're certainly well-versed in documenting everybody who's hired on the project, whether our subcontractor labor reports. In this particular case, the bulk of the labor of the shell is going to be us. So we can certainly provide some sort of reporting mechanism to you, so we can show you the progress of that and how well or how not so well we've done. However, we do anticipate to do very well, especially having John Jackson, City of Homestead, building this project.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. I have some other questions. In your evaluation of the project, and I think you had it listed on one of your slides there, but we anticipate, I guess, the anticipation date will be the second week of July, and you anticipate to have the project completed by the fall of 2015. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. For any unforeseen circumstances, is that the drop date deadline that you all were looking at everything? Is that what you all anticipate to be a real bottom line date?
Sir, that's what we are anticipating now. Of course, it takes teamwork to make sure that we finish ahead of schedule. And when we coordinate with the architect and engineer, weather is another thing. We live in South Florida. Great point. God willing, we don't have any or multiple major storms, which is, of course, these are delays that nobody here can anticipate. But assuming our normal weather patterns and whatnot, as far as contractual time, we certainly are expecting, with the right collaboration between your staff and the architect and engineering staff, that we truly believe we can come in maybe a couple months ahead of schedule.
Mr. Manager, if there is some unforeseen reason that the date that they have given, is there any penalization for the project not being completed on time?
There is an outer date, Jerry, liquidated damages.
Yes, there's a liquidated damages clause in the ITB. The actual dollar amount, I can't recall right now, but there is liquidated damages.
And the date, do you remember the outer date where those would kick in?
The actual date, I would have to look at the contract documents, but usually it's either a substantial completion or final completion. We have usually liquidated damage attached to either one of those, so that's how it is.
We can get you the exact dates, unless, are you familiar with the outer date?
not the specific date,
Okay.
but I can assure this to the council, MCM in its 30-year history has never been assessed liquidated damages.
All right. In some of the documents, do you have any, I seen Link Construction, is that part of, I seen it in documents here, is that any affiliation with you all?
No, Link is a very strong competitor. He is the second bidder on this bid. Very reputable firm, and we're good friends.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely no affiliation between the companies, though.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's it for, I reserve the rest of my time.
Ms. Wallman?
Raul, how long have we been working together on this project, talking about it from the very beginning? Wasn't it, it was before 2007.
It's about 10 years. I didn't have gray hair then.
I won't comment about me. It's been a pleasure. I don't know if I've ever had an opportunity to say that to you, but this gentleman has been steadfast, and his firm just beyond.
Thank you.
And we've had our different dioceses, and we've had different personalities, we've had different comments, different ways to see things. But I just want my colleagues to know that I'm very proud to finally be sitting here with all of you, and you being the ones looking at me. They get no respect. But I just want you to know how much I appreciate the opportunity to make this decision with all of you. It's very important. And do you recall, remember we had a LEEDS grant? I'm just going by memory here. Wasn't it a LEEDS grant?
I don't remember if you did, we didn't apply for it. It must have been applied by the staff.
I think we had
But
one. It wasn't a lot, but we had one. Julio, do you remember?
I know that we applied for a lot of grants. I don't believe that we got one for LEEDS certification, but I could check in the history on that. But that, if that was the case, that may have happened in the 2009 bid process, and it wouldn't apply now.
No, it was between 2007 and 2009, and I
Correct,
distinctly
before the
remember
2009,
they announcing it at a council meeting that we got it. But I just wondered if it's a possibility to reapply for something like that, or are they even available for the LEEDS?
We'll definitely look into it, and there has been a lot of effort put into looking at not only those type of grants, but other ones as well.
I just again want to say that I remember all those years ago we went out there, and I called it the pretend groundbreaking ceremony, you know. And I remember distinctly that morning, you were with me. I was there. You were there. And I'm like, why are we doing this? Because we weren't near ready. But we're ready now. We're ready. And we're so overdue. And I want to say thank you to the management team headed by our city manager, Mr. Gretzis, because we never would have got here if it hadn't been for him. I truly believe that. And our mayor and his leadership, vice mayor and council, you know, I'm so ready to move forward, so ready. And but MCM, I wanted to say your last name, but I couldn't quite get it off my tongue there.
Munilla.
But yes, but MCM, I've done research, and for the school board superintendent, he's a tough cookie. I know him, and for him to give you that kind of glowing recommendation, I just can't wait to work with you. I'm so excited. You're going to see me down there some days, you know, just popping in just to see what's going on, and I'm just so excited, and I hope that they're not going to be penalized if we have weather issues. And I just wanted to clarify, Mr. Williams, I didn't know when you asked that question. Can somebody answer that? Sorry, George. But no, not penalized. I know you said that there's some, but not for weather. I didn't hear that. Okay. Okay.
Correct, and to answer the question regarding weather is not considered fault of the contractor or the city. It is act of nature, basically, is what it's called. So there is no penalty attached to weather delays. But those have to be verified, and like everything, you know, excessive weather for storms, et cetera, all that is documented, and at the end of the project, the timelines are adjusted appropriately.
But I thought I just heard you say that there is an outer date, and regardless of weather is what I'm hearing. And I want to make sure they're not penalized for weather.
There is a number of calendar days where the project is supposed to be completed. However, if there is a delay because of weather, that the calendar days are work days. They're not actual, if there's a storm or something that comes in, the end date would have to be adjusted accordingly to make sure that the same calendar days that are available to work are used for the project.
Commissioner, there are monthly requisitions, pay requisitions that come to the architect from the contractor, or also to the owner. But that's when they request those days, if there are rain delays or storms or anything. Storms are force majeure, which Julio just said, are acts of major nature. But even if there's a substantial rain that they cannot pour concrete that day or something, that's why, that is submitted monthly. So those adjustments are made, and that does.
But that's something that's mutually agreed upon.
Correct, correct. They request it, and the architect and the owners have to approve.
Right. And so the liquidated damages are more for they get another job and that their new customer wants to get it done quicker, so they sit on us and they don't do anything for 6 months. That's not something that our contract would allow for.
I was just trying to watch over you. And hopefully, God willing, we won't have any storms for a long, long time. When I say storms, I'm talking about hurricanes. And nobody wants this finished quicker than me, so I have personal reasons for it. So thank you very much for coming tonight and giving such a beautiful presentation. And I was very impressed, even though I already knew of your company, and I greatly appreciate the thought you put into your presentation, because I think if the people don't know your company now, or before, they certainly know your company now. And are they going to be giving the same presentation at the council meeting?
If you'd like that, we could do that.
I don't know, it's up to the mayor, but I just think it's important for people to know that you are a legitimate company and that you have experience. But the mayor will make that decision, I'm sure, before the council meeting. But again, thank you so much, and Raul, I love you, but I hope we don't have to work for another 10 years on this project. Yes, there you go.
Thank you, and whatever you request of us to do, if you would like us to present at the commission next week, we're at your service, whatever you would like us to do.
We'll set it through the manager. Before I give to were you finished, Ms. Wallman?
No, I was just going to say maybe condensed presentation instead of the...
Mr. Manager, before the Vice Mayor's next, but the clarification on the timeline, you'll know on a monthly basis if there's a slippage in the construction project. So it's not going to be a surprise at the end of 18 months you're going to see 3-month delay. You're going to know that.
It shouldn't be, and it also shouldn't be any surprises if we end up with some cost issues, change order issues. Those are things that we're going to be staying on top of, right, Julio?
Correct, and those are all, like Raul Rodriguez mentioned, those are all looked at on a month-to-month basis, and there has to be buy-in from the construction manager, from the contractor, and the client, the city in this case, to make sure that we all agree on what those days are and what those changes might be.
Point is, we'll be made abreast of everything through
Yes.
the course of the project.
Yes.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple quick comments and then maybe one or two questions. I'll be one of the ones that kind of reiterates the idea that we don't want change orders. We don't want this coming higher than the budgeted amount because we know it's tight, and also that make sure it's on time. I mean, this is kind of, we have a list of projects that we're going through. Many of you know we've got this plan for our downtown, this revitalization effort that we're going through here in the city of Homestead, and this is kind of that gateway project. This is the first project in a list of many projects. And so it's critical that this project be done professionally, that it be done, as cheap as possible, and also that it be done on time, because, any slip-ups on this one, it pushes the rest of the projects back. And so I think it's important that we make sure that this one, is the shining example of what we hope all the other projects will look like. And so that's kind of my my comment, my caveat, making sure that you guys are aware of my position on that, and I know you'll do everything you possibly can to make sure you know, do what you've always done with your quality projects. My second question, or my first question, I guess, is the architect that we have on this project. Have you guys worked with this architect in the past? Is this be your first time, or you have experience?
This would be, to my knowledge, our third time. Correct me if I'm wrong, Raul. We finished a large project at the airport with them, and we are currently working on an assisted living facility for United Home Care. And if, Raul, if you want to make a comment on that project, but we are working with them, so we're very familiar with the principals and the team members, and we feel extremely comfortable working with them.
Okay, that was my question, making sure it was important. You guys have worked together, that you guys have an open line of communication, and there won't be any stumbles in that particular location. The other thing too is I noticed through your presentations that there were a couple of the projects. You know, we talk about change orders. There were some that came up, there were some that came in even, and then some that were actually under budget. You know, that you actually completed less than. And so that would be my question to both you guys and also to the city staff, and that is, you know, along the way, are there ways in which we can maybe reduce the cost or the price that we currently have budgeted? Is there a way to actually save money on this project through this process once you guys get working?
Well, let me give you a couple examples. The school board, for instance, has a direct purchase order program. It doesn't necessarily mean that the money disappears, but what happens is they get to save the sales tax associated with the material purchases. For instance, on that Miami High project, if my memory serves me right, they saved roughly between $650,000 and $700,000 in sales tax by direct purchasing roughly about $10 million worth of equipment. That doesn't absolve us from the liability of managing that work and whatnot, but it does afford you the opportunity to save the taxpayers that money. In addition to that, we did the same thing with Miami-Dade Water and Sewer, where we saved them almost $1 million, which wasn't a contractual requirement, but we did suggest to them to do that in order for them to save the money. So that's one avenue that you all can explore to maybe do that.
Okay, because that would be the goal. Any place we can save some dollars here, some dollars there, without sacrificing the quality of the project or the time frame of the project, you know, I'm all for, because that's the only concern is you don't want to make a lot of changes along the way and then delay this project, because I think it's key that, as I reiterated earlier, that it be on time and then obviously as under budget or on budget as possible.
That is strictly a mechanism. It's just more a timing thing more than anything, but it really doesn't add any additional costs. There's maybe additional paperwork involved, but there's really, I mean, the added benefit of saving hundreds of thousands of dollars far outweighs the administration work that's required to go along with it.
Okay. I think that's all I have for now, Mayor.
Answer the Vice Mayor's question as far as, has staff done any thought processes behind the purchasing side of this? Because I know our procurement process is much slower than private sector process, but have you done any analysis in-house? Because I know there's opportunities for savings there.
We had the discussion because just of the sales tax issue alone, whether we can work on that or not, we're going to need to sit down with them and really understand. On the one hand, we think we can save money that way. On the other hand, I just want to make sure that the government bureaucracy doesn't end up, because government does things slower for a variety of reasons, just because there's a lot more regulation involved. So we're just going to have to weigh what makes the most sense.
Go ahead.
Just to follow up, just to kind of reiterate, that's where I want to save every dollar we can. However, I want to make sure that we don't bog this project down any more than it's already been bogged down over the last, 10+ years now. So to the extent that we can, there does need to be a cost-benefit analysis on, is it worth trying to save a dollar here, a dollar there, or is it more important to finally finish this project because it is the gateway project to all these other projects that we have planned. And so for my purposes, my direction would be speed is better than cost savings, but let's try to save some cost along the way if we can.
We understand.
Okay.
Mr. Maldonado.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, congratulations to MCM for winning this contract and this bid, and for the architects that have stayed on with us and worked with us to help finally start this project. And so I'm looking forward to seeing this project completed. My questions maybe to the manager and maybe as a question overall on knowing that area where they're going to be working in construction. We've known through past and history through Miami-Dade County is that whenever there's construction, a lot of times some of those businesses that are in the area seem to somewhat could suffer, whether it's traffic or trucks piling up or the whole area just becoming very dusty and dirty. So what are we doing in reference to that, and how do we work alongside with MCM to make sure that, that process is going to be good for the business community that surrounds the project that's happening?
The relationship of a project with the neighbors around it is always very important in any construction project that you put together. In this particular case, you're absolutely right. There are some very close businesses in close proximity to the project itself, where this project, one of the positives that it has, or one of the I guess the good points regarding the construction of it is that I would say most of the work, if not all the work, is going to take place inside of the fence line that's out there right now. There are some modifications that will be done to Washington Avenue, basically where the plaza meets up with the Washington roadway. But those improvements were considered up front so that we wouldn't have to go back and tear up things that we had already done. So in terms of impact to the adjacent properties, we don't anticipate too much of that. However, keep in mind that there is going to be a full-time construction management company out there representing the city. That will be our eyes and ears out there, and basically one of their jobs or one of their tasks will be to ensure that there's no negative impacts during construction, or to minimize the impacts, because there's always some impacts regarding, you have to close down a road to put in a water line, et cetera, those type of issues. But to minimize them and to work with the adjacent property owners to make sure that they have the information up front, they're aware of how and when they're going to be impacted, so that there's no surprises out there. The whole idea is to work together. Usually in a project of this size, we have construction meetings on a weekly basis out there, where there'll be representatives from the city, there'll be construction management representative there, the contractor will be there, inspectors will be at these meetings, and the idea is to not only look at what's being done at that particular time, but look ahead just 2-3 weeks at a time to make sure that there's nothing that's going to happen next week that's going to impact people in a negative fashion, or impact the project in a negative fashion as well. So
also, as good as any plan is, when it comes to business owners, it's very typical to start hearing complaints anyway. And so what Rick Amarato will be sort of like the ambassador here, so that since the CRA, this all fits within the CRA, it's going to be very important that he continuously interact with the business owners, so that, one day of trouble, interruption of business is a big deal for a small business owner. So Rick is going to be very well integrated with the store owners to ensure that any little thing that occurs, they know to call and make sure that it comes to our attention, because the truth of the matter is, we have our operation, we're doing day-to-day stuff, and all of a sudden some truck comes along and parks there or blocks the store. Those are things that we may not notice day one or day two, and it's going to be important that people communicate that to us before they end up losing business. So signage issues and all these things that occur just as part of it, in the old saying about you got to break some eggs to make an omelet, there's really no 100% clean way of doing a project like this without disrupting somebody. It may be a traffic issue, it may be a noise issue, it may be a dust issue, and we're going to need to hear from the store owners on a regular basis, and communication is going to be our best weapon to avoid some of the trouble.
Perfect.
To piggyback on that, if I may, as a matter of quality assurance, we will have an extensive MOT plan. In addition to that, we'll have like truck washdown areas to make sure that the dust control is under control, if you will. Things of that nature will really help in the process.
Thank you. And again, just whatever we could do to make sure that we're taking the interest of the community, business community there, it's going to be a great help.
And another thing we're going to need to be very careful about is if any of their workers using up parking spaces that the store owners rely on for their customers. And again, that's something that we're hoping they're going to be very careful with and ensure that they're watching over their own people. And we're going to hear from the store owners over time, but they're going to need to self-police their own people as well, because it's harder to figure that out unless everybody's watching at the same time and who's going in and out. That's probably the biggest problem you could have, is using up all those spots and then
Right.
nobody can go and pick up an ice cream or
Or that, when we have, whether we have parades, whether we have any events that are happening in the downtown area, obviously we need to take in consideration, that construction that's happening there. One other question that I have is in regards to the travel route that they're coming down. Has that been looked at to be efficient? Is there any modifications, improvements, or anything that we need to do to assure that that pathway is working successful and it works good? And is there any alternates?
Those type of details will be taken care of when we have our pre-construction meeting with the contractor and the design engineers, et cetera. And the idea, again, is to have buy-in from all the parties in terms of what's best for the city, for the neighbors, and also making sure that the project, can work. That particular design, we haven't vetted that yet. We'll do that once, we know that we can move forward with this project. But the first thing that happens in any project is a pre-construction meeting where those type of details are addressed to make sure that the best possible way to bring in supplies, equipment, materials, et cetera.
We have a little
is
experience with this. Rick, if you could just speak a little to, you've done quite a bit of construction there with Public Works.
Yes.
Could you explain how you've been able to get through that without a whole lot of commotion?
Really was first setting the tone. Julio and I, we had those weekly meetings, and we expressed to the contractor the importance of open communication at all times with the business owners. Washington Avenue, for an example, it got to the point where the construction manager for the contractor who was on the job knew those business owners better than we did. They went and introduced themselves. We would hand out literature. Whenever there was anything that we saw was going to impact that business, we made sure the business knew well in advance. They knew they could always contact me if there was an issue. And we had almost, other than one little piece of equipment tearing a tarp, which the contractor replaced, we didn't have any issues with any of the owners on Washington Avenue. They also met with Miami-Dade College to make sure that Miami-Dade College knew what was happening, because they have so many avenues to get into their parking. We needed to make sure that none of that was impeded. There are times, though, when sometimes they need to do something and they need to do it right now. At those times, we would go out, we would meet with the business owner and let them know. So it's really about the contractor understanding the importance. I tell them all the time, I'm not usually the first one to hear a problem. One of you is the first one to hear a problem, and then I hear about that. And we wanted to make sure that that didn't happen. And I thought we did a really good job as well on Southwest 4th Street. We wanted to make sure that when there was a parade, the Martin Luther King parade, while we were doing work there, and we had to make sure that all of that worked well. So it's really about a weekly understanding of communicating with those businesses and being proactive. And it works very well. So I'm pretty sure, Julio, that's the plan going forward on this. And it's a lot of the same people. So.
And just on that traffic route, obviously, you mentioned Miami-Dade College, and I guess you guys would be working with them as well, because obviously where that pathway where they'll be traveling through is right across where the students would be coming in, and basically the main entrance to the school. So, yeah, thank you.
Mr. Manager, is there any improvements going to be taking place on Civic Court? The roadway itself, is that subject to, usually after there's a project, there's a lot of damage. The road's in bad shape anyway. Is there any scheduled improvement to that?
Leah, do you want to?
That roadway is not part of the scope of work for this particular project, but you're absolutely right. It would make sense to do those repairs or those improvements through city, projects after the fact, after the construction is done. If we do it prior to that, or it wouldn't make sense.
No, I mentioned that so that if the project can be slid around.
You're absolutely right.
At the tail end of this project, it would be nice to improve that infrastructure right around the Civic Court area. So.
Correct.
I'm going to reiterate a little bit of what the Vice Mayor said, that the resident and the taxpayer have entrusted this council with a large series of projects and a lot of money, and there's a lot of pressure on us, and this is to staff. This is to the contractor. We need to do this right the first time. No mistakes, no slip-ups, no finger pointing. You know, I want to make sure development services is there punctually, making sure that, you know, if they've got a job to do, that they're there to do their jobs as well. So we don't want to come out of the box in our first major project and have a slip-up. The contractor, we don't want to have a slip-up because, you know, this is the tip of the spear. This project is the tip of the spear. There's a lot more spear behind it. So, you know, with as much sincerity as I can possibly say, this is a big project for us because this sets the bar. It either sets the bar low or it sets the bar high. But I know this council has worked hard to get this project moved forward and to get the voter to believe in us enough to give us the additional resources that we need to do some other projects downtown. So we really need to make this one work. So it's imperative that everybody does their job, Mr. Manager, everybody, including us, whatever we need to do. But this is the first one, and we certainly don't want to swing and miss on this one. So whatever you need from your staff, whatever you need from us, Raul, you know, it's been your project for a long time. You've been here at the table a long time, and we've got to get this done right. We've got to get it on time, on budget, everything. Dot every I and cross every T. So please, I implore of you, it's important. It's very, very important to us. So is there any follow-up questions from council? Mr. Burgess?
Just a couple comments, if I could, Mayor. Raul, thank you. You know, the night that we started this journey, I guess back last October or something, or somewhere in there, you know, you spoke very passionately about this project and how hard you and your firm had worked on it. And I wasn't sold on it back then on that night. You know, I had different ideas of where the city should go. But through your speech that night, or your lecture, whatever, however people want to phrase it, you know, it kind of opened my eyes a little bit. So thank you for all your hard work on this project. But I know you guys have put a lot of years and banged your head more than once and said, what the hell are we doing back down there again? But
well, thank you for your support. It's
Yeah.
an important civic project. It's
Yeah.
not a condo.
Right, right. And just to piggyback on what Mr. Maldonado said, I think that, and to Julio or whoever, when you guys had that meeting, I think we need to look at a different route, because Campbell Drive is an overused, failing road as it is. It's very narrow, and I think perhaps if their trucks would come down and exit off the turnpike there and come up Highway 1 and take a road off, that would be the shortest distance and most inconvenience to our citizens, which is you know, it might be a mile or two further on a truck, but it would be the most inconvenience to our citizens. So I think if you would look at that, that's a good point that was brought up. So, and just again, overruns, we're going to talk to the police station. We've got the lieutenant here that's been working on that project for them, and they came to us for $3 million, and I told them I'd give them $3 million, but don't even come back and ask for a penny. So unless it's something that's drastically wrong, and I hear your reputation, and I've spoken with people, so I know that, you know, there's good things out there. You presented yourselves tonight, but please, as everybody is saying, you know, we're moving. We're on a we're over budget on a tight budget already starting. So please, you know, just do the quality that you can for us at the best price and make us all look good. And thank you. And thank you for saving us $650,000 already. If you get awarded the contract. So
Mayor.
That's all.
The Vice Mayor, then Mr. Williams.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Back on the roadway topic, I think that's something we need to keep in mind. Whatever route we choose, it should be the same route probably for all these projects, because you have now multiple projects for City Hall, for the Seminole Theater, for the police station, this iconic attraction. All of these are going to require construction, and so rather than destroying a bunch of roads, we should destroy one road and then fix that road at the end, or find a way to do so. So I think that's something that needs to be taken into account, is that not only for this project, but whatever you choose for this project should also be convenient for these other projects, so that we're only inconveniencing one area versus all the areas at the same time. That's all.
Mr. Williams.
Yes, I'm back on the local businesses here. Is there any way that perhaps we could really kind of establish a priority that in writing of some sort to ensure that some of the local businesses or subcontract works comes out of Homestead? Many times when I'm here and I get stopped quite often to ask, what projects do we have coming up, or how much does the local businesses or ensure piece of the pie? And you're right, Mayor Porter, the citizens, the people who have entrusted us to govern, watch over their resources, but also it's always good to see local businesses that can do the work be out there on the site. So I'm trying to figure out in my mind, how is it that we can ensure, to make sure, though they have an impeccable record of having women in their company and all that great stuff, but I'm talking about the local economy here in Homestead. How can we ensure to make sure that our local businesses also gets to share into some of the jobs with dealing with these projects?
Well, I'd be curious to see what their reaction to it. The short answer is you can't guarantee anything, because obviously this was the lowest bid situation. But since they are here and they've been very eager to please, at this point, I'd be curious to know what they'd be willing to agree to tonight that would alleviate some of your concerns.
Thank you.
Well, as you know, this was a publicly lit project, and we probably did our normal estimating procedures, which is advertise in papers and try to solicit the greatest amount of participation possible. I certainly did not come prepared with a list of addresses and which businesses provided prices to us, but I can assure you that the local business will be given the same opportunity as any other business. And to my knowledge, I know there's certain scopes of work that unfortunately may not be local. For instance,
yeah, I understand that. I'm very clear with that. I understand that. And my concern is not that Homestead is not considered to be like every other business. My fight is for Homestead. My fight is for the persons who the company is based here in Homestead and do work here in Homestead. And so what I'm saying is, on all of these projects that we, not just what you're doing, but on some of the other projects that we have coming up, that how can, going forward, how can we ensure now, even in bid preference, the local bid preference, how can we ensure, or not so much guarantee, but to make sure that our persons, businesses get some of the, my fight is for them. My fight is not for anybody else other than Homestead. That's all I'm trying to say. How can we work that into wording to whatever percent or however it's been done before? So I'm eager to hear the answer to that particular question.
Commissioner, I'm sorry for not understanding your question the first time around, but now I truly understand it. There are certain agencies in Dade County, for instance, MDX is one of them, the roadway, and what they do is they have a program, and they go through a certification process, and subcontractors, for the most part, qualify as local, meaning they have to be in a certain city. In this case, it's all of Dade County, but in your case would be the city of Homestead. And by setting that goal of, for instance, say 10 or 20% participation, I can easily see the city of Homestead possibly adopting such a program where if you do a mandated stated goal based on the type of project and making sure that the base of subcontractors in Homestead can support that type of goal, then I can easily see how that could be successful in your city.
Absolutely. That's where, now we're talking. So I like to see something of that sort because at the end of the day, the local economy is very important. And our local businesses who's been supporting Homestead for many of years. So I just want to reiterate that to be able to come up with some formula or something to make sure that a percentage or something is geared toward that.
We have discussed internally for the next batch of projects coming before you. As you know, with this particular City Hall project, after we only got 5 bids the last time, we asked to remove the local vendor preference, and unfortunately, we even just got two bids after that one. So for the next one, we're looking at, hopefully, whether it's the Seminole Theater or the police station, some sort of program that will encourage what you're asking for without discouraging bids, and we haven't really come up with the right formula yet, but we are discussing it, and we're hoping to have something that's workable. But for this particular one, we hadn't really seen anything that we could do since it went out as a competitive bid, lowest price, and our fear.
Absolutely. At this point in time, we probably cannot, but I'm sure as the contract is drawn up and the details are worked out, that a considerable amount of consideration could be given towards that. I mean, it's been done before, and I don't see what the obstruction of it could be or the hindrance of it could be. They're able to do it. So that's my main concern.
You have a reaction? Anything more you'd like to say on that point? Is there anything you're willing to volunteer at this point in terms of assurances?
Well, we're already assured as far as the, for instance, on the labor side, the fact that we are self-performing, I can definitely prepare some sort of reporting when it comes to hiring local labor force. Now, in a public bid, the bids that we receive, Bay of Bid, is usually the ones that get analyzed, and those are the ones that get awarded subcontracts. What we certainly don't want to find ourselves in, including this commission and ourselves, is inviting other bidders after the fact, because then we start talking about things such as bid shopping and things of that nature, and we certainly don't want to be associated with that because that's going to be looked upon probably negatively in the press. So unfortunately for this one, we really have to look at those subcontractors who participated in the bid process. But for the future, certainly you have every opportunity to do something different.
Let me ask this question in a more diplomatic way. In some of those other bids that came in, there were considerable amount of effort. For instance, there could be a company that bidded for a subcontract on one of the other bidders, but did not with this company. But that can be a local, that's local in preference. So if they bidded, for subcontractor work on one of the others, persons or companies beyond this one, I've not seen in any of the documents I've looked at that some of the same company, or that the company that's local preference bids on the, could be bid with MCM, but they did bid with another contractor. So whether there's local preference that did bid, may not have bidded with your company, but bidded with the second or third or fourth one.
I think what he's saying, Councilman, is that for this contract, I believe you selected your subs on this bid?
Sir, there was a contractual obligation to list certain subcontractors, and we did so.
Right, so what happened is part of their bid, and if you, in the bid package, I'm sure you've looked at it, is their individual, you could see the flooring subcontractor, they're going to use the roofing subcontractor, they're all listed there. And so that's what he was referring to in terms of bid shopping. Once he's been awarded the bid, then there's been a lot of criticism about once you get awarded the bid, then you sort of grind down your subcontractors, and it's not a good practice. But what he's saying is that all of the subs for this contract they're already included. We required them to be included in the bid.
Well, that doesn't really answer my question.
It answers it. It's not a very good answer.
Richard, if I said it hadn't answered my question, it hadn't answered it.
Okay, so restate it then.
Yeah. So, I'm fine with the process. I understand that. And so, it does not, and I understand the negative connotation towards that. But at the end of the day, my philosophy and ideology is what I stated. And so, based on that, I stand where I stand. And that is local preference for persons in Homestead. So the other issue then, Richard, is done in a legislative matter, that we can possibly legislate things to happen within a particular scope of work or contract. So I was not trying to do that. I was trying to be able to get some assurance that could be done through the contractor, but it didn't work out the way I thought it should work out. So my next option is to legislate it in order that those that Homestead persons are to be very considered at a percentage rate.
Yeah, I think it would be difficult to do for this contract.
I understand.
But on future contract, I think what.
But this has to come back when? Because we can't vote on this tonight. We have to vote on it at council meeting.
Next week.
Next
Right.
week.
Okay. I have a week. I have 7 days. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
On the heels of Mr. Williams' comment, one of the things, if we were, for some reason, to legislate a percentage, the question is, do we have that percentage here? And I think that's where we need to explore a possibility of a training process, whether it be on the job, so that not only, it's not just the subcontractors, but it's the residents themselves that are possibly prepared or get into the lines of being a pipe fitter, being a stucco, whatever it is that's needed. But I think we need to kind of find some way to get our community to work. And a lot of it may be a training process, maybe a tooling up process for our residents. So, maybe you guys do this all the time. Contract. Is there some way that we could, maybe establish some sort of a program for our residents so that not even in your project, because this project's going to be going on for 8, 12, 18 months. But the other projects are going to be going on for many, many years. So we have the opportunity to establish a training situation, a program, so people that want to get involved and people that want to have a job and want to go to work can be properly trained. And Mr. Manager, this is something that we need to talk about. What are our options as a community to maybe, like Mr. Williams is saying, we got a crystal ball in front of us that tells us these things are coming. And we've got our community has the opportunity to participate in that if they get the right training, if they have the right skill sets. If we don't have the right skill sets and we mandate a 20% or a 10% or 5%, we can't get them from our community because they're not properly trained. So, maybe we start working on the horse that's going to pull the cart, which is training the community or getting the community set up to take advantage of those job opportunities. So, as staff, as bright people who are in the job field, let's explore some ideas there, because I think that's something that we really need to do for this community, because these are government projects. But I don't know that there's a possibility to mandate a number and then not be able to achieve that number. So let's train that number, get that number teed up. Mr. Williams.
Thank you so much, Mayor, for your assistance on this, because, and even if there's a percentage, and I know that even if there is a percentage and there's a fallback, if it cannot be done within this geographical area, there's always a second piece to go, and find, a company that can do it. but at least let that number be a number. And I'm thinking that even in our procurement process, we kind of identify through our vendors of who can do what and what they can't do, how many persons or companies that we have within this area that can do some of this. So I'm just looking for a little bit more comfort because this is a $27 million project, and our local businesses or companies should be able to get a piece of that pie. And I think we have a lot of competent businesses here that can do it. That's all I'm saying. But at least let's give them an opportunity to be able to have a seat at the table to be able to do that.
Ms. Waldman?
I come from a construction family, and so I kind of know the process a little bit as far as schooling goes. And I think Mr. Williams and Mayor Porter have really good points. And I would like for us to encourage a relationship with the college to see if they have any classes for pipe fitters or carpenters. I mean, there's welders. I mean, there's all kinds of ways we can approach this. But I know in recent years you had to go all the way to North Miami to get training for any of this stuff. So there might be something, Mayor Porter, that we might want to look into with the college to see if they would offer that, because I do agree we do have a lack of training here, and I think people would jump on it. But anyway, we're going to move forward. We're going to do what we have to do to make it better. And Mr. Burgess was making fun of me earlier because I said, I wonder if they still have my bike racks in the plans. Do we, Ro? Yes.
I told her no change orders already.
He was teasing me. He said, here you go again. So anyway, I'm very into the environment and encouraging people to ride their bikes to work and you know, to get out there and do things. So, see, Raul took care of me. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Manager, do you need anything else from us on this? Any final questions for MCM from council?
The only thing is, I'm assuming you don't want it on a consent agenda, that you want it as a separate item, or you want it on the consent agenda?
Well, if we're going to do it, if the will of the council is to do a presentation, it would have to be not on the consent agenda.
That's what I was trying to clarify.
So the question is,
I would like it to be not on the consent agenda.
So you wanted, we want a presentation. Is everybody okay with that? Ms. Waldman, you wanted a presentation. Okay. So I think for respect to the public, I think we should not have it on the consent agenda. Go through your presentation, and then if there's any, we won't have the same level of discussion because you've already basically answered most of our questions. But out of respect for the public, maybe that'd be the thing to do, not have it on the consent agenda. And you guys be prepared to give us, you know, the presentation again to the public. Is that okay?
That is perfectly okay.
Okay, council okay with that? Okay, so we're going to move on to tab 2.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Tab 2. Who's got the ball?
In case you guys forgotten the Heat are playing tonight.
We'll move quick.
Oh, then you're done.
Okay, thank you, MCM, appreciate it. And okay, the second item on here is the location of the police headquarters. Clicker seems to not work again, so whatever we did the first time, let's try it again. Jerry? We wore the clicker out from the presentations. I don't know if they're anxious to get done here, Jerry, so. Yes, sir. Is it working now? Okay. Okay. As you know, May 13th, 2014, voters approved the bond for a new police station and for funding for a temporary station. 74% approved, 26% disapproved, so obviously a clear mandate to move forward. We're trying to move as quickly as possible to get both of these things done. Quick update on the temporary facility. We just wanted to show you some before and after. Staff has been working very diligently to clean out, and get ready for the construction. As you can see, the mess that was left there, it was really a disaster, and what we have now is a fairly nice condition to start with the construction. And what's going to happen now is that tomorrow, or Julio, when is tomorrow, bids are expected in for contractors. We should have on Friday going out a selection for you for your consideration at the Wednesday meeting to award a contract to one of the winning bidder. And from there, they'll get going and try to get this finished. Our hope is fall. Julio, we're still on track for October 15th, correct? October would be when hopefully everybody's in and operating and we're done. Okay, so God willing, we stay within the $3 million. We have, I understand. Okay, second thing was February 11th, you had all asked us, well, you made several decisions. One was, by majority, a majority of you said you think that the new headquarters should be in the historic downtown, assuming a bond is approved. And then the second thing was, second direction was, analyze properties that meet our space criteria and come back to us with an analysis. So basically, we saw two properties that met that criteria. One was the Flagler lot, and the second one was the CRA lots. Flagler lot, just to kind of give you an update on where we were. As you know, you commissioned a master plan for an iconic attraction. Basically, the consultant has provided you, we sent you an email with the latest of where we're at with this, the concept of a 500-plus foot tower. The master plan lays out exactly where the tower would be, where the ancillary retail would be, where the motion entertainment theater would be. And so right now they're in the next step of this, which is talking to investors. The plan is by next week, hopefully, to have at least one investor who's coming down, although there's several investors, Rick?
Yes.
That are interested in looking at that site. Rick?
I'll be able to give you a confirmed number in the beginning of next week. I'm sorry, a confirmed date, in the beginning of next week.
They've been going back and forth with schedules, although we did hear today, the latest info is one of the investors wants to make sure before they spend money to come down that you're okay with the master plan. They're looking for some sort of manifestation of support before they start spending due diligence money. So we may have to get back to you on that, assuming that that's the case. But we do have one investor who doesn't need that at this point, correct?
Yes, they're very interested and they're looking forward to coming down.
So our assumption is the Flagler lot, assuming you're still interested in doing this iconic attraction or some type of attraction on this lot, that we felt wouldn't necessarily be the right location for the police station, assuming you want to keep that in play. The reason why we don't think iconic attraction works on CRA lots, which is our second option, is because it's so close to the residential neighborhood there, and certainly a 500-foot tower with the lights and the sounds and all that might be more problematic on that lot. So we analyzed the CRA lots for police station only. And what you're looking at now is a conceptual layout. What we asked Kimley Horn to do is, can you fit a 75,000 square foot building on this lot? Are there any environmental issues? Are there any layout issues? Is there enough space, flooding, et cetera, et cetera? They did a lot of environmental testing, including kind of x-raying the ground just to see if there's anything in there that's potentially problematic. We know there's a flooding condition, although they've told us that that's not problematic because the site will be raised during the construction phase of this, similar to the Family Dollar store, which already has done this. So that is not a problem. Parking, and by the way, this is just a concept because we have a lot more discussion about, assuming this is the site that you want, what should the building look like? Are we going to have surface lots? Are we going to have a parking structure? All of that really needs to be thought through. From my perspective, if you can put a building there and have surface lots and not have to put a parking garage, that certainly would be a cheaper alternative, although we have to make sure we have enough parking in order to do that. But as it stands now, Kimley Horn, architects, staff is all saying, if you want to put a police station on this site, it works. Then the next question becomes what kind of design, and you're going to have plenty of opportunity once we go through the selection process of picking a design firm, design team. You'll have plenty of opportunity to discuss with that team what kind of architecture you're looking for, and again, whether it's the CRA lot or the Flagler lot, those decisions are going to have to be made. Now, this is the one that we shopped around during the informational campaign, and many people like this. This is a perspective that you'd see from Chrome, and the concept here was whichever design you pick, our hope would be that at least some elements of the building you'll be able to see on Chrome so that you can tie in the civic components to the historic downtown and get the feel that, you know, the government presence is part of the whole overall package. So here you can kind of get a sense of what this particular design would look like through the Lausner Park area. And this building, of course, is a Art Deco type style, and the concept here is to have the tower up as high as possible so that you can see it from Chrome. And also, this building, as well as your City Hall, the thought process is for both of them to have that symbol of authority so that, you know, you kind of make the government's presence known there. And also, we're building buildings that are not 30-year-old buildings. We're building buildings that are here to stay, be part of your history, part of the future. And so whether it's this style, we also have another one from Rodriguez Quiroga. This one here is more in keeping with the neoclassic style that you have over at the City Hall. This would be a view from West Maori. And as you can see, it's sharing many of the same elements that your City Hall will have. And then from the Flagler side, from the Chrome side, you can see the building to the left and a parking structure to the right. But again, this is just, this was a rough concept that we asked everybody to put together just to give us some ideas of what things might look like. And just because one architect proposed one idea doesn't necessarily mean you're going to pick your architect based on what their proposed design is. You're really going to dictate that process once you get your team on board. And then, so that really becomes, if you want it in the historic downtown, unless we go through a big property acquisition process, these are the two lots that we looked at, and we're looking for some direction, because once we have that site located, we're going to start hopefully bringing to you a final selection on a design team, and then really start kicking this process into place. And for those that are working on temporary station, this adds a second element. So they're going to be running parallel courses, but we're going to have to really get going quickly because construction is increased this year alone 10%. We went from a complete drought where nobody had any work to now everybody's busy, and we only got 2 bids. So we have a finite amount of money, and we really want to get through this as quickly as possible so we can get the building designed, get the bids out, and start building as quickly as possible. Yes?
Question, Mayor. Thank you. The CRA lots, how were they bought with TIF dollars? Was some of the land already the city? How does that work if monies were purchased? If TIF money was purchased for the CRA lots, and now we're putting to propose to put a police building there, does the city enter into some agreement, monies that were purchased for those lots? How does that work? Have you all thought about that?
We went and looked at how we received all those lots. Some of them were purchased by TIF. Some of them were warrant deeds. Some of them were given to the city. There was a lot of acquisition done after Andrew and when you first had the CRA being built. So it's a kind of mosaic of different ways that we received the property. Now, for the use of it as a public facility, that's definitely within the bounds of the CRA board. It's really a question of if you believe that putting the public facility there is going to be an economic benefit to the downtown. We're supposed to look at all of those types of issues in our plan. So whether it's educational, whether it's cultural, or whether it's a civic institution, those are all viable under our plan. So there's no restriction from you putting a police station there.
The only thing we would need is we'd need both boards, we'd need the CRA board and the council to effectuate the transaction. Basically, it's a transfer, correct?
Yes.
And also, there is one sliver, is that the one in purple?
In blue, yes.
Yeah. That one there is assessed at roughly $30,000, somewhere around there?
It's around $35,000.
Right, so assuming this is the site that you want to do, we're going to need to start negotiating with them on that particular one.
And who owns that?
I don't have well, actually, hold on 1 second.
My other question is, so basically, two things. We've not really chosen the architect style of the building.
Correct, and that's
Right.
going to be totally your decision once you have your design team in place, although you have a couple of samples here, so if at some point during the downstream you say, geez, I really like this one or that one, that kind of helps, but depending on the architect that you hire, they may have something else that they like that's even better than some of these, or at some point you'll have that discussion.
Number two is basically you've already in mindset figured the Flagler lot to be for the iconic attraction, right? I mean,
Well,
in some respects, you've already kind of.
And I can't guarantee that whatever this consultant is doing to try to bring an investor, I can't guarantee that they're going to be able to pull it off. On the other hand, I'd hate to give up that option if that's in play or if there's some other attraction type use for this lot. And so I'd have a little different feeling if we didn't have that residential neighborhood by the CRA lots. I'd say that either one of these are interchangeable, and there's a lot of pros and cons. There's certainly benefits to having a police station at the Flagler lot in light of the fact that the city hall is on that side.
Right.
On the other hand, you have to weigh, is it realistic? Is there a chance that you may have some sort of an attraction? Because for an attraction on the CRA site become much more problematic for residential purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And Councilman, the owners of the property are Maury Drive Properties LLC out of Miami.
Mm-hmm. My other question would be that these are the only two, my comment would be that on some of the literature that was sent out for the bond, a staple was used of the police station picture. So I think when people voted, they looked at that iconic, nice building, and then you showed us just a 2-3 level flat building that was like plain Jane. And this one, and I like that the one that went out in the mail for the voters. Picture plays a lot on persons, so mindset in choosing things. So. I didn't know that there was any more options other than that one. And my other question is, why was that picture chosen and not any others?
Truthfully, we went through this as we were developing the brochures. We asked police, we had several police officers there and police brass, and we had some staff members there, and we looked at what was probably the least controversial, because each of these bring their own pluses and minuses. And so this one looked like the favorite, but we also didn't make any representations that this is going to be the final design. On the other hand, you make a good point that I can tell you we did probably, I guess, almost 30 presentations throughout the community, and most people looked at this and really liked it.
Right.
So if there's a gauge as you're thinking through, geez, what's a good design? Certainly this one here has been vetted. On the other hand, this one could be perfectly fine too, if that's what you like, and that we'd have to go through a vetting process as well. And I think it's also a function of, are you looking for somewhat of a similar style as your city hall, or are you looking for something that's a little more distinctive? And this is like art, really. Some people like one type and some people like another, and it's really preference. So, that, quite frankly, I've never been a big fan of Art Deco, and yet people looked at this and they oohed and ahed over it, and so I'm a more, you know, look, I'm Greek, so, you know, we invented the column, so what can I tell you?
Right.
But it's going to be totally your choice, and when the architectural team, whoever they are on board, we'll have that discussion, and so that's real. And as you could see, this building probably doesn't work if you put it on the Flagler lot, because the style is just not.
But yeah, I'm just saying expectation and what the concept of what people have seen through the bond process, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly could live with this. I think it's perfectly nice, but I didn't also want you to feel like this is a close. It's your decision. This is a policy decision.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess as far as my direction or my thought processes go, I agree. I think the CRA lots is the best location for the police department because I want to leave open that option for this iconic attraction, for something really unique to bring and revitalize the downtown and bring people and tourists to our downtown. And I really like the idea, and I'm afraid if we put the police station on the Flagler lot, then we foreclose that concept. The other thing I like about the idea of spreading out our government buildings that we're investing the money in is that by kind of encompassing the three corners of our downtown, that I see that you have the City Hall going next to the Washington Avenue, the police station going there on the CRA lots, eventually the parking garage going where the old police station was. You know, the Seminole Theater also is in that same vicinity, but you kind of have spread out the investment that the city of Homestead and the government is making, and I think that encourages private development to then fill in those gaps, where if you put all the money in one spot, then you have this radial effect, and maybe it gets to the outskirts, but maybe it doesn't. Where here you've placed strategically our monies in the government buildings so that it encourages development to start in multiple places and then fill in between, and you really have a uniform, revitalized downtown. So, you know, that's kind of my thought process on where and why. And then as far as the building goes, design-wise, I echo the sentiments. I think that the voters did kind of see a certain building, and that's kind of what they have in their mind, but I like that distinctive style. I like the idea of having something that's unique. It's a draw. So again, you have multiple facets of government buildings that really, you know, kind of draw you to the downtown versus kind of being a plain square Art Deco building. So I like the unique design, whether it's that specific design or something similar to that, but I like the distinctness of that building. So that's kind of my direction.
And that feedback is helpful because any of the architects that we'll interview can build any building you want. They can draw any building you want. So it's not, we're not going to pick a specific architect just because of their specific vision, because ultimately it'll be your decision. On the other hand, giving us the feedback like you like one particular style over the other, you know, is helpful as we start developing this thing.
Well, I like the idea too that you have the big dome of the city hall that you can probably see from the police station, and vice versa. You're going to have possibly this tall spire from the police station that you can see from the city hall. So again, it's another way from just on a ground perspective, being able to look up on the horizon and see these different buildings and where they tie together and where they are. So it's all those types of factors I like.
Great.
Ms. Wallman.
The only thing I ask, and again, I'm a proponent for the CRA lots, because regardless if this iconic attraction goes through or if it doesn't go through, something's going to come through, and it's good. And now, I wouldn't have said that a few years ago if I had thought maybe we could have done the police station and the city hall together as one unit, but that's history, and we're not going to go there. But as far as the aesthetics of the building, I just ask that the architects be mindful of our historic downtown and keep it in uniform, because we do have, you know, very specific architecture in our downtown, and I see Ms. Knowles here in the audience, and I'm sure that she would love to get to talk about that privately with some of the architects. But it's very important that we keep some sort of a pattern going, especially now that we did get the bond referendum for the Seminole Theater. So I just think that's very important that we do. I like all the buildings. I think I particularly like the as you call it, the Art Deco building. Particularly like that one, but I don't know that that would fit in our downtown. So I'd like to have some choices. And
absolutely, and that's a discussion you really need to have, because once you build it, it's going to be there to stay. So you really don't want to have buyer's remorse after the fact, and you should all discuss the philosophy behind what the building looks like. And there, and we could spend another 5 hours on the current City Hall and why it's the style it is now, but those discussions were already had, and we just didn't want to go through it again, and this is a good opportunity to now talk about what should the other building look like, and should it be a mirror image, should it be something different, and you have the deco of the Seminole Theater, but you also have other styles down there, so you can match to maintain the integrity of the historic nature of that area with either of the styles, I think, but that's going to be something you need to all discuss.
And if I may, Mayor, I mean, I think it's very important to have that presence in our downtown, because if we are able to get the parking garage, and as the Vice Mayor said, you know, we're not just in one spot. We are encompassing all of the city, and we want to make sure that that people go from building to building, and they, you know, exercise their wonderful rights to eat at our restaurants and shop in our stores. And I think that that's going to encourage people to move downtown as well. So I'm going to have to leave in about 5 minutes, but anyway, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Manager, you got two choices on the table, and basically one of them's off the table, because you're saying the iconic attraction is not on the table because you know, in essence, that project is still out there.
Unless you don't, you know, unless, I mean, if this site was the perfect site for the police station and that outweighed iconic attraction, then it certainly is your choice. There was no other property that met the size dimension.
No, I understand. I'm just saying that the Flagler lot is an unknown because they haven't come back. We don't know anything yet. But tonight we're saying, okay, let's pick the location. So, I mean, we're kind of in a little bit of a corner here, if you want to call it, because we want to save. I've always been a proponent of having both separated but together, and I understand everybody else's philosophy, and I think all of it makes sense. You know, originally there was a plan to expand Losner Park, and the parking garage was to the west of that long linear CRA lot. So there's been a lot of thought process gone into that particular expansion of that particular area. One of the things that just, you know, from the perspective of, you know, I'd hate to go ahead and choose the CRA lots when there might be some other opportunities there, just to find out that the Flagler lot isn't going to be used. But again, it's a footprint question too, because there's a lot less property on the Flagler lot than there is on the CRA lot.
It's a funky type sliver, you know, it's a little
right.
harder.
It's a little odd. It kind of fits the profile of the iconic attraction because everything is vertical. So I'm arguing against myself here, but that's okay. But the bottom line is, one of the things that I think we need to consider when we build a police station is that for those of us who hear through Andrew, cars were being towed from everywhere. Damages were, you know, so a lot of our squad cars were damaged because they were outside in the elements, and it's been proven that cars that are parked in an elevated garage tend to fare much better through that hard weather. So I think we should consider, not only is it a smaller footprint, you know, potentially, but it's also a safer area for cars to be parked in the case of a storm. Just as a side, I'm not saying we have to do it. I'm not suggesting that we have to do it, but I think that we've got to start going up with some of this stuff. And I don't know how much it adds to it, but I think it would be worth the exercise to find out how much it does. I mean, if you're going to ask me tonight, based on what's laid out in front of me, with no other options, I'd have to go with the CRA lots, just because.
One other option you have is to not make a decision on which site until you have the iconic attraction resolved. My concern with that is I don't know if we're a month away or 4 months away, and obviously every month that goes by where we don't pick the design team and we don't start focusing on a particular site, it just becomes a delay issue.
Absolutely fair. Now, Rick, you said that you were going to be talking to somebody Tuesday, Monday, Wednesday. What was that?
Monday, Tuesday.
Monday, Tuesday.
Yes.
So that your conversation will be part of the information prior to the council meeting.
Actually, what we were hoping for is if there's direction for a site here, that we were hoping for some direction tonight, so.
Okay. Well, let's just ask the question, okay? I mean, if this is what we've got to choose from, rather than going, because we've been here a long time already, if if there was just a little poll from who's going to go with the CRA lots based on the choices tonight. The Vice Mayor said he's in favor of that. Ms. Waldman says she's in favor of that.
I can be flexible as far as long as we have somewhere where we could have some kind of iconic attraction. That's my biggest thing. Now, I haven't heard the arguments yet as to would an iconic attraction fit on the CRA lots? I don't know. But I know we need a police station. So, what are you asking, Mayor, that we wait or?
No, I'm not asking that we wait, because I think that, the process of waiting is what took us 7 years to build a city hall. So,
10.
Well, that's true. But I'm not suggesting that, but only thing I'm suggesting is it's if we don't have any kind of closure at all, we don't have any idea. I don't have any idea. Maybe somebody else does. I don't have any idea of the marketability of the iconic attraction, because we don't have anything back.
The only test of the marketability is if they have there's an investor that comes and we sign a deal with them, and we're talking about months and months of that just to solidify financing. So that's the only problem here, is I can't tell you whether it's 2 months or 6 months, and so it's really a function of when do you want to say we need to get architects on board, start drawing a building so that 9 months from now we can have start shopping for contractors.
Sooner rather than later. This is exactly what we just all talked about.
So I'll go with the CRA.
We've been entrusted with the public money to build this police station. So my only thing is, if the world was perfect, I would like to have closure tonight that says that there's an investor going to invest in the Flagler lot, but the world's not perfect, and I'm not going to sit here and wait for the perfect world for 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 months at the expense of this project. So I'm willing to go forward with whatever we have available, which is our property is limited, somewhat limited. So in the perfect world, I'd love to see it on the Flagler lot. It's not perfect. So we've got to make a move, or we've got to make a decision as a council to go forward, give you the opportunity to go forward and get this project built. So that's my feeling. So did you want to say something, Mr. Burgess? I saw you hit your button.
I mean, the CRA lots, the iconic attraction, if it's to ever come to fruition down here, would be very difficult with all the houses and stuff around that. So, and your point as to the cars need to be elevated when the storm comes or whatever. Well, if we're going to build a parking garage down there, we can certainly make sure everybody's vacated out of it, which I think the city would do, and we'd be able to park our vehicles in it as needed. So I think that would help us with going on that point also.
And the other thing about whether the parking structure or no parking structure is all going to be part of the design process, regardless of which site you're talking about. And so we're going to need to cost out a parking structure. We're also going to need to get a definitive answer on how many spots we need and how many can we fit on as surface. And then also, if we're going with a particular style of building, so for example, you make the decision, we really want a nice tall building so that you could see it. We want 5 stories. Well, the higher up you go, the more expensive the building becomes. We know what our budget is. So everything's going to be in play until we figure out, we really start costing things out and decide on design. But there's no doubt that a parking structure will be part of the discussion.
Right. Well, and encourage the PD and all the players to seek out grants like you did on the Seminole Theater, matching grants or something. I know there's a lot of resource out there for police to maybe help us offset the cost. But before you leave, is there anyone opposed to giving the manager the direction to use the CRA lots at this point? Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Any objection to letting him go forward with CRA lots? Okay.
No.
Good.
We're going to need process to start getting items, calling a CRA meeting, getting architects in place, engineers, that kind of thing. So that direction is helpful so we can kick off the process.
The CRA is separate,
Yes.
Okay.
But just giving him the direction tonight to proceed with
Start
those lots.
papering some of this stuff and also hiring professionals that we need to get going.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Manager?
Mayor, I had a question, and just looking at this map, and I know that, you were talking about, and I know that in the past, we've talked about the Flagler lot as being, that potential area for police station. Just a question, and I know we're not talking about purchasing and all that, but I know that the question is, what's going on with that piece of property right across from the Flagler lots where it used to be that lumber store? Did anyone ever inquire about that property? Has it been sold? Is it Miami-Dade College own it? The lumber guy. So the question would be, have we ever looked at that spot at all?
We didn't look at anything that involved acquisition, because we have a limited budget, and we factored in, we think minimally we're going to need $14 million for construction, although as construction starts rising, we've got an $18 million budget, and that's it. So we knew we could handle the 30,000 or plus or minus for the one sliver, but buying, property was just not part of our budget.
Okay.
Okay, so you got what you got.
Great. Thank you very much.
Tab 3 is the approval of the minutes. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. All in favor? Motion carries. Tab 4, Mr. Attorney, well, that's the...
Yes, this is an approval of a workman compensation settlement that you discussed with Mr. Stetton in executive session.
Anyone have any questions for staff on that? Is there a motion? Is there a second? Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Tab 5. Mr. Manager? That's a resolution.
This was a resolution, and there was some concern about Councilwoman Faircloth not being here because of jury duty, so if you'd prefer to wait until she's here next week, that's...
Is it a time specific?
Well, no, but I will tell you that the League of Cities has given it full sponsorship also, so trying to bring some more monies back to our local public library and make it...
I'm just wondering whether she'd want it on the consent agenda, because she might want to speak to it, so it's really your call.
Well, we could pass it on the consent agenda. If she wants to pull it off, she can pull it off.
Okay.
So unless council doesn't want to go forward with this, but I mean, it's basically just asking the county to do what they used to do. It's bringing the money back into the library system. So if there's no one, if someone wants to table it, or we can table it. Somebody wants to move it, move it. Is there a second? Dies for a second, so is there a motion to table or defer?
Yeah, I'd rather defer and let Councilwoman Faircloth present it.
A motion to defer and a second. All in favor of deferral? Aye. Okay. Nay, one nay. Motion carries.
A and B are both requests to submit grants. You could do them together if you wanted to.
I'm sorry, I got confused there.
Tab 6 and 7 are both requests for permission to submit a grant. They both could be done together if you wanted to.
Anyone opposed to 6 and 7 being together? Okay. Mr. Attorney, Mr. Manager, anybody want to give us a little update? What is this? Cultural Affairs grants? These are for the Seminole Theater. Matching grants? Just tell everybody what it is real quick. Dennis, please.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. What we did is we went out there looking for some grants for cultural theater, and we found 2 potential ones so far. One's at $50,000, which will help us with architectural, and the second one's $500 for building. They're matching grants. We'll use the bond for matching. One's $500,000, which we have to spend $1 million, and the other one's $50,000, which we'll match for $50,000.
The nice thing now of having voter approval on this is now we have available funds, and the hope would be then we can try to leverage some of that where there are matching fund type opportunities. Whether we win any of these or not, we don't know, but we want to try to maximize anything we see that has matching funds in it. We're going to try to bring it in, so either lower our cost or we can start enhancing some of the Losner Park pieces.
No, I agree. I think that's what I was thinking of, the same concept with the police department and other construction projects where you know you have the monies already in place. So any discussion? Is there a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any final discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Madam Clerk?
Down A and, it's tab 6 and 7.
6 and 7, I'm sorry. Tab 8, waiver of fees. Mr. Manager?
This was you all had a discussion on wanting some sort of a fee waiver policy. Dennis, did you want to go through the highlights?
If they want us to go with if they want us to go with the PowerPoint, I'll go ahead and do the PowerPoint for you, although I think it is attached to your agenda.
Did you want a PowerPoint, or did you want
just
Dennis
want-
to spend 30 seconds going through the highlights?
Anyone from council that needs to see the PowerPoint on this? Mr. Williams?
That would be a no on your PowerPoint.
That will be a no for the presentation.
They want the 30-second version.
They want the 30-second.
Yeah, but this affects some of my area, that's why. I just got a question on the process here of the eligible applicants. And my question is, it reads that only not-for-profits or 501c3 organizations may apply for a fee waiver in order to qualify for a waiver. And an organization event must, one, be free and open to the public to serve public purpose, benefits of the city, and be sponsored by the mayor or a member of the city council. What process do you use in order to ensure that the nonprofits, that they are nonprofit and that they are up to date on their 990 form, especially for 501c3? That's a federal designation for process.
Councilman Williams, what I do is I look them up, same way that any attorney, our attorney firm does. They look them up, make sure they're up to par. And that's how we do it with all our waiver fees that we bring forward to you. In the past, we've always made sure they're up to par with that. That's what we'll keep on doing with this too, sir.
Okay. My next question is the idea of the deadline submittal. What is that about? The deadline, submit deadlines by January 1st or April 1st or?
Correct. Councilman Williams, what more or less what we're trying to do is we got a lot of requests like within 3 weeks or 2 weeks before their event. What we're trying to do is accomplish is that we made it quarterly, so the organization can come to us a month, 2 months before their event. They can fill out the application, we can send it to the council, and they can tell us if they want to sponsor it or not sponsor it. That's why we did it this way, to make it where it's just not, because it was kind of hard on staff when it was 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the event, and we had to bring it to council.
Okay. But your application read is a lot different than what you're saying. You're saying that the submittal deadlines are on January 1st, April 1st, July 1st, and September 1st. But you're saying if they submitted in February, and they can't submit it in February, they have to submit it in April, right? And so if the event is in March 29th, and they didn't get it in January 1st, then they won't be able to have an event?
Councilman Williams, that'll be a no. They still can fill out an application. But for this process right now, until January next year, we will not do it since we implement it. There will be a $100 fee that they will have to pay, which is non-refundable.
The other, is this, I know you all talked about it, but after your conversation, is this what they came to put together, or you all read over this before, or is this the first time we're looking at this?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I might, because I have some of the concerns that you have, and that is.
You okay?
Yeah, no, I'm just, yeah.
Come back to you, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
just
no, I
asking.
actually I responded to what he just asked, and the question was, is that the only concern I have about this is I feel like we're kind of rushed on it, and that this is something that we've been talking about for years now about implementing. And I'm okay with it. I have one or two questions myself, so I'm okay in its current form, but The only concern is I know that some of my colleagues seem to have concerns, and then we don't have the full board here. And so what I don't want to see us do as a council is rush through this fee waiver policy procedure, and then the very first time it's implemented, we throw it out the window and we say, we don't like it, let's make changes, and we're back to where we were. So I think if we're going to do this, let's do it once and do it right. And so, I feel that that's what Councilman Williams is having concerns about, is understanding where this is. So,
Well, if I could offer, Councilwoman Wallman is the chair of Parks and Recreation. She's not here, and this is really your first time seeing this, so we're not in a hurry to push this forward. So if you need more time,
Yeah.
we're, no objection from us.
But may I highlight just what when Councilman Shelley is done?
no, I'm done. I just wanted to
Okay.
raise that as the point so we didn't all discuss and then realize we wanted to table it anyways. So I want to put that out there, but I do have questions if we continue the discussion.
Okay. I have concerns. And the question is the sponsorship. An event must be sponsored by the mayor or a city council member in order for an application for a fee to be approved. What if I'm the council person and somebody wants to have an event within my area, and I don't agree with the event, but they go to one of you or one of my colleagues here and said, well, Councilman Williams will sponsor it. Would you sponsor it? Then that puts us at odds with each other, because I may feel that organization, whatever. So how do we not do that? I mean, that's a concern for me, number one, because if they say, well, I'm going to the mayor, okay, the mayor has one vote like I do, but at the same time, they see hierarchy. People see hierarchy as that. So if I don't want to sponsor an event and it's within my area, and they go to one of my other colleagues and they choose to sponsor it, how have we talked about that? Is that
Well, the waiver of fee process right now comes before the council anyway. So if someone comes to you and asks for a sponsorship, it comes back before the board. This doesn't obviously have that provision, because each one was limited to a point system. So once your points were gone, so if the consensus is that I, as mayor, have to have a blessing of the council for my points to be allocated, that would need to be built into this.
But only the council can waive fees, so
Exactly.
that's really,
Right.
ultimately, it's a majority vote decision.
right? But the way this reads is not like that. It reads that an event must be sponsored by the mayor or a council member in order for the application for a waiver to be approved. The language does not read what it's saying, what we're trying to say. That's all.
We can draft it any way that you want. We're totally okay with whatever
Yes,
you want.
Yes, I yield to Mr. Burgess.
Well, let's go back to the drawing board. Go ahead, John.
Mike, I think my concern is to like Jimmy's. If Group A comes in and says, hey, John, will you sponsor us? And I say yes. Jimmy doesn't agree with it. He doesn't go on to give them, if they're asking for $500, and I say, okay, I'll give you 200. Let's see if we can get some more from somebody else. And somebody doesn't give to them. Then what do we do to protect? There's certain groups that come forward that I don't agree with, and I don't want to necessarily give them money for their event, or I don't think their event deserves money. Yet, if we give them a piece of paper that says we're either supporting them or not, then they come back and say, well, why didn't you like our event? And makes us look like a bad guy because, well, maybe I was out of money, maybe I didn't like something that was taking place inside of the event or something. So I think there needs to be some sort of way to,
This was go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Well, no, I was just going to clarify. I think that it's not for giving of monies, because we get a lot of those requests too. Unfortunately, this doesn't solve that problem. But what this does do is a strictly waiver of fees for use of a facility.
$2,500 fee. It's given us $2,500 per person to use throughout the year.
Only
So
to
it's
waive
giving
fees.
us money.
No, only to waive fees. So if it's $25 or $500 for the use of Harris Field, the money goes strictly to the waiver of fee, not to sponsor the, right.
But if I say I don't want,
But that's the sense of sponsorship.
agree with what that particular organization is doing.
No, I don't
and
disagree with your
everybody else
point.
does, you know what I'm saying? Then they say, well, Burgess didn't give.
Right, no, I don't disagree with your point. I wasn't arguing to that point, because I have similar concerns you do on that very same point. I was just clarifying that the monies is only for the actual use of the facility.
It's not actual cash,
Yeah,
it's
but
a credit.
here's the intent, was, I think the majority of us were trying to see, how do we get our arms around the expense that we allocate out in the waiver of fees? So the point system was not about dollars as much as was it gives those points translate into dollars to, that's our cap on fee waiving. Now, what we need to figure out is, how do we all want to approve that process of continuing to waive those fees, or let it go like it is? Right now, someone approaches the council and says, hey, we did it to an issue the other night. They said we wanted to waive the fees for something. We didn't vote for it. We all looked bad. If I had voted for it, I might have looked good, but, so we all end up being thrust into that spotlight of supporting or non-supporting. But in the absence of having any clarity on this right now, I think we need to send this back, and because I think there's some things in here, just like eligible applications must be free and open to the public. Well, Rotary Club is a not-for-profit, and they charge to have people come into their event. So that, again, we need to clean this up a little bit. And let's send it back to Parks and Rec. Let's send it back to Judy, as suggested, and maybe she can set up a meeting, a committee meeting of some sort, and we can thrust this out at not 9 o'clock. Is everybody okay with that? So we're going to move this off of this agenda and move it back to Parks and Rec. No problem. Okay.
Yeah, but I just want to get one clarification, though. And it could be, and it's something that Vice Mayor Shelley said, even though we give them, let's say we waive the fees, they can still use that as saying that we sponsor them, because it's like an in-kind. We've not exchanged any dollars, but I think it would be still considered sponsorship in some, in some form of dollars. So we have to, I just want to be careful with the language in here, and I'm very appreciative of this. But I think it needs just a little bit more work. But thank you, Dennis, for bringing it, the Parks and Rec for bringing it. At least this is a start. So,
Right.
Yes, sir, thank you.
It's a start.
If we keep our eyes on the ball of trying to figure out how do we limit the waiver of fees, and then let's get the best possible option out of that, realizing we need to get our arms around that portion of what we do. Vice Mayor, and then we'll close and move on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as far as the procedures going forward, what I don't want to see happen, though, is I don't want to see this just get tabled tonight with no clear plan, because what I'm afraid of is we're going to go 6 months down the road. We have a lot of big projects going on, and we're going to be facing the same issue over and over again. So I would say it should go on the next CAL, but be one of the top items, so that we are fresh and we can debate this thing, and then maybe we table something else that night. But that would be my only thing. The sooner that we can address this, put it in place, and be done with it, the better we'll be.
Well, yeah,
So-
I agree. And anybody that has ideas, let's put them on, maybe paper or something, and give it to the manager, so that if, like this particular draft that we have, I didn't like the portion where it has to be free and it has to have, public access. That doesn't always fit what we're doing. So we've created a problem right there. So that's my question, and I'll list that down for you. Anybody that has another question, but then we need to send it back through Parks and Rec again, because I think we all have the same
Yeah.
concept.
So, Mayor, can I offer this as a motion that we table this resolution till the July 8th CAL meeting?
July 8th. Okay, there's a motion and a second. That should give Ms. Wallman plenty of time, I would assume.
Yes.
So, motion is to table time specific to July 8 CAL. And there was a second. All in favor?
Aye. But that's going to be up close to the top of the CAL, one of the first things we discuss?
I make a motion that is the number one discussion item on
Now
it.
we're talking.
Early in the agenda.
And
Yes, sir, Mr. Manager.
we've got a few items that are going to be fairly significant, but are time sensitive, so I just encourage you to give us a little flexibility to, I know we got to select a bank, we've got to select there's a few things we've got to do to get the projects done. And I know this is important, but if we could just have a little flexibility on agenda order.
And maybe Dennis, as you craft some of these things, if you can maybe make sure that each council person is up to speed with what you're, what you're going through or what's coming out of the committee, so, but we'll get there, but the motion is what it is, and it's early in the agenda on the CAL on July 8th, so we'll work it through.
No problem.
Sorry? Perfect, perfect, okay. Tab 9, transformer.
This is basically an item just to move to the consent agenda for authorizing the purchase of one transformer drawing system for the lowest responsive vendor, SD Myers, in the amount of $34,576. Bids were solicited from 228 vendors, but only 2 bids were received. The other responding vendor, Siemens, provided a cost of $54,300.
Any questions from council? Saves $250,000 on a transformer, potentially. Any questions? Is there a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any final comments? All in favor? Aye. Tab 10.
This is, again, just to move this to the consent agenda. It's a recommendation.
Moved and seconded. Any final comments? All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Ho, ho, ho. Is there a motion to adjourn? Oh, well, you didn't get a second. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Meeting adjourned.
Mr. Manager, George.
Hey, Richard.
Sure with you, just been one.